Mayor, the meeting is now being streamlined.
Thank you for that, City Clerk. Good evening and welcome to the January 13th, 2025, 6 p.m. regular joint meeting of the Bell Garden City Council and successor agencies to the Community Development Commission. This meeting will now come to order at 6:05 p.m. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting live online through the city's website as noted on the agenda. If any of the members should have a conflict of interest, please announce any item you're recusing from due to a conflict of interest prior to the item being heard. Tonight's invocation will be given by Minister Daniel Anguano, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Girl Scouts Troop number 2543.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Just bow our heads as we come before God. Heavenly Father, we are just very grateful that you allow us to be here in this day, Lord, for allowing us to awaken and see a new morning. God, in this hour, Lord, I pray for all those that have been impacted by these wildfires, Lord, for everyone in our county. We just pray, God, that your mercy be over them. We pray that you may help them restore what has been lost. For those who have lost a loved one, we just pray that you comfort them in this hour. I also pray for the guidance of our leaders, the leaders of our city, that you may, Lord, in this new year, as it initiates, that you may guide them with your righteousness and with your justice. We pray this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Please stand. Face the flag. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may now be seated.
Thank you for that. City Clerk, please announce roll call for the members of the City Council and successor agency.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Members of the Council and Successor Agency, Barcena,
Present.
Councilwoman Guillen,
Present.
Councilwoman Sanchez,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem de la Rosa.
Present.
Thank you, Mayor Chavez.
Present. Thank you for that. We will now move on to the presentations. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Chavez. The first certificate of recognition we have is for Lucero's Bakery. If they can come up to the podium, please. I'll turn it over to you, Mayor.
Thank you for that, City Manager. I'll go ahead and begin by reading off the certificate of recognition on behalf of the City of Bell Gardens and the people of Bell Gardens. Certificate of recognition honoring Lucero's Bakery. The Bell Garden City Council is honored to recognize Lucero's Bakery. We congratulate you on your successful business, your casual bakery, and delicious, authentic baked goods. We wish you much success and prosperity for many more years to come. Signed, Jorge Chavez, Mayor of the City of Bell Gardens, with the Bell Garden City Council this January 13th, 2025. And I want to go ahead and open it up for Ms. Carmen Perez to share some words, and then I'll open it up for the rest of the council to also share some words.
Okay. First of all, thank you for inviting me. This is my first time being here in Bell Gardens, and it's a pleasure for us, as our hard work and have a bakery in can say Bell Gardens. And thank you very much for inviting us.
Open it up for the rest of the council.
I just want to say thank you so much. I know that you give a lot of donations to the community. I know when I always go to get churros or any other bakeries, there's always happy customers. All the workers there are very nice to everybody here. So thank you so much for doing business at Bell Gardens, because it's bakeries like yourself and small mom and pop shops that really help our community thrive. So thank you.
Thank you.
Likewise, I would like to say thank you, gracias. Recuerdo cuando iba a la high school, todos los niños siempre paraban, compraban su pan, sus churros. It's like a landmark for our community. Now, Lucero's has become that for us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Amén. Señora Carmen, solamente le quiero dar las gracias por por ser parte de nuestra comunidad de negocios. Yo sé que técnicamente usted está en Commerce, pero está cruzando la calle y la verdad, la mayoría de la comunidad que vive ahí son de Bell Gardens. Y pues yo personalmente le quiero dar gracias porque las veces que yo he ido a buscar apoyo para eventos, una vez fue para un evento de la escuela, para los que toman el examen de la ciudadanía. Y usted nos donó algo para la fiesta que les hicimos para reconocer a los graduados de esa clase. También recientemente a nuestra posada, la primer posada que hicimos de Día de Reyes, usted donó champurrado y churros y la verdad, pues se lo agradezco porque no nada más son las donaciones, pero es el ejemplo que usted da. Cuando yo voy a su tienda, siempre están trabajando duro, todos, pero hacen una pausa para recibir a los, bueno, a cualquier cliente que llega. Entonces es un lugar no nada más de negocio, pero es un lugar de amabilidad y de gente, y por eso yo sé que van a seguir ustedes con este éxito por muchos años que vienen. Otra vez, muchas gracias por todo y aquí estamos para servirle.
Gracias. Thank you.
Sí, muchas gracias en realidad por todo lo que hace aquí en nuestra comunidad. Igual que Isabel mencionó, es un lugar que nos trae mucha felicidad. O sea, ¿quién no sonríe cuando muerde un pan dulce, no? O cada madrugada o en la noche, uno, o sea, es una buena manera de iniciar y terminar el día. Así que muchas gracias por todo lo que hace.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Absolutely, Chief.
So I have a special, sorry, the mic's a little too loud. I also want to say a couple of words because I known Carmen for many years, and um, I am also very proud to have her bakery here, and it's also very traditional in my family, churros, coming from El Distrito Federal. And when I first tasted their churros, I really thought I was back home. So I known her since I was a very young patrol officer, and we have, kept this relationship and this partnership. And so I'm very honored to, be a chief and also to have servers like council member Barcena said, yeah, technically she's in commerce, but believe me, she doesn't hesitate to call me when there's a problem in her surrounding area, and we're always happy to assist her because we have also been part of that community where she's always supporting the explorers by giving out free churros, or she's always very helpful and always willing to really give back to the community. So gracias, Carmen, por muchos años de conocerte y de veras estoy muy feliz que esta noche te está el reconocimiento por todo el trabajo que haces en la comunidad. Gracias.
No, pues para agregar, nomás, no, muchas gracias por siempre estar aquí, para apoyar nuestra comunidad, nuestro departamento policial, Neighborhood Watch Program, que también ha participado. Same thing with our recreation department, ¿verdad? Los eventos que hemos tenido de recreación en la comunidad, siempre el churro, los churros y el cafecito no nos falta. Y el champorrado también. So, de nuevo, se lo agradecemos. Sabemos que Luceros Bakery está en Commerce. Pero voy a decir que tenemos uno que está en Bell Gardens y al momento, cuando yo iba a la preparatoria de Bell Gardens High School, siempre lo pasaba y esto fue que 10 años, hace 10 años, y recuerdo que estaba abierto todavía y pues no lo hemos abierto de nuevo. Y me gustaría que en el futuro lo abriéramos otra vez y siempre he dicho que en el sureste de Los Ángeles tenemos tanto potencial en poder abrir un espacio donde jóvenes se puedan reunir a estudiar, a crear como una cafetería para poder hacer tareas, aprender de uno del otro. So, es una cosa que muchas veces se mira en otros lados del condado y pues qué mejor que esa oportunidad que aquí tenemos con Lucero's Bakery. So, eso es lo que yo miro en el futuro y ojalá que se haga realidad. So, de nuevo, de parte aquí del Concilio de Bell Gardens, para nosotros, para mí, siempre ustedes, Lucero's Bakery es de Bell Gardens. Yo siempre voy a decir que el primerito que voy a decir esto es BG, porque todos los lados, en esa calle, en la Gage y la Darwell, todos los residentes que viven en la Darwell en la derecha son de Commerce, pero en realidad los servicios cuando llaman al departamento de policía o a lo mejor hasta hablan al concilio aquí, el City Hall, piensan que viven in Bell Gardens. So maybe that's to be something that'd be interesting in the future if we could annex that part of Commerce. I'd love to see that. A couple hundred residents. What was that? Right? I didn't think of that. But it'd be a great partnership, and just glad to see that. So again, thank you. And si podemos, nos podemos reunir aquí enfrente para tomarnos una foto con el certificado. Gracias. Okay, thank you so much. Moving on, certificate of recognition for Food Forward. Folks from Food Forward want to step up? And we'll go ahead and set it up right here. City of Bell Gardens. A certificate of recognition honoring Food Forward in appreciation of your community service and efforts to fight hunger and prevent food waste by rescuing fresh surplus produce and connecting this abundance with people experiencing food insecurity, inspiring others to do the same. Through your efforts, the Bell Gardens community has benefited from the food you provide to the Free Farmers Market Initiative. We wish you many years of continued commitment to the communities you serve. Signed, Jorge Chavez, Mayor of the City of Bell Gardens, along with the Bell Gardens City Council, this January 13th, 2025.
Thank you very much, Mayor Chavez, council members. It's really an honor to receive this certificate in honor of our partnership with the City of Bell Gardens. It's a special privilege for me to see Mayor Chavez sitting there. I've known him for many years now, so thank you very much. I'd like to turn things over to our CEO, Rick Namias.
Thank you, Jeff. Yes, Mayor Chavez and council members, thank you so much for having us here. This is quite an honor. Food Forward started about 16 years ago next week in a neighbor's backyard, harvesting backyard fruit by hand. Moved on to add farmers markets to our activities with volunteer-powered events. And then about 10 years ago, tackled wholesale produce, which is what brought us to the Bell Gardens and City of Bell community. Our produce pit stop, which is about 1.5 miles from here, moves between 250 and 350,000 pounds per day of fresh surplus produce that would otherwise go to waste. That's somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 pallets. That produce is donated to us free, and it goes out the door free to over 260 agencies across the county experiencing food insecurity with the lowest bar for participation possible. We've been doing this with partners who get the food the last mile. Most recently, I've worked with Support and Feed here in Bell Gardens to create a free farmers market, which moved produce to over 200 families, I believe, the day it was done, and look forward to increasing both the numbers and the frequency of that event in the months to come. So we greatly, greatly appreciate the recognition and the support, and especially Mayor Chavez's involvement, and hope to have the opportunity to work with you all again soon.
Thank you so much for that. I want to go ahead and open it up for comments. I'll start and say thank you so much for coming and for being a part of our city. I know we've had some conversations with our Bell Gardens Recreation Community Services Department. We got a farmers market going through really the partnership that began with Food Forward. Right, I've taken an opportunity to see the tour of the facility right here next to the Bell Shelter, not too far from here, in the city of Bell. And I just want to say the extraordinary work that you guys are doing are phenomenal, right? Really exceptional work, and I really appreciate it. When we talk about giving back, making an impact, being a good neighbor to nearby cities, it's organizations like yours that stand out. So with that said, I want to open it up. If any of my council colleagues just want to share a couple words and go from there.
Yes, I saw what you guys are offering out there, and I want to say you guys are doing a great job. It's quality food for residents that really need it. Thank you to the Recreation Department for figuring out all the details. Thank you to our community for being out there. And I don't know if you guys are aware, but that's where the art and yard sale is. So we already have people there, so it's kind of like the perfect location. So great job. Quick question. How much longer do you guys have? Like, do you guys have like, are you guys planning to be there for like a whole year, or is there any outlook into the future?
At the Bell Gardens event, we're looking to, I think, continue it on a monthly basis and possibly increase the frequency.
Oh,
So I
okay.
think we have January and February scheduled right now, and then based on its success, we'll continue from there.
Awesome. Well, looking forward to it, and thanks again
Sure.
for all the work. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to, echo some of the sentiments of my colleagues saying thank you very much. I know that a lot of our families here in the community appreciate it. So being able to get the fresh produce from you guys, for free, helps a lot. So thank you so much for offering this to them.
Share the sentiment. Thank you so much for coming into our community, for seeing us, for, considering Bell Gardens, and I continue to working alongside with you and our mayor. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all the impacts that you guys create in our community, and it's sort of a trifecta because it creates it improves the health of our community members, and also it's great for the environment, and in a similar impact, it also creates economical impact in our community. So thank you so much for everything, and happy early 16th birthday to Food Forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And again, so thank you. We'll go ahead and take a picture real quick with the certificate of recognition right here in the front. And with that said, again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, briefly before we move on to the next item, I do want to just say to Jeff, I've known Jeff for well over 10, no, I was 11 years. Now we're at 11, probably more, man. It's been, yeah. I was like maybe 14. No, I was not. I was like 13. I was a freshman in high school when I met Jeff. And at the time he was CEO of JSA, Junior State of America. For those that don't know, JSA, Junior State of America, was a high school club, civics, engagement, debate, political club that sort of got me involved with government, and I sort of found my passion for public speaking and being a public servant. So we've known each other for so many years, and it's through Jeff that I found out about Food Forward, and I'm just really glad to see that we're still here, and we built this partnership. And again, just thank you to everybody, and thank you to Jeff as well. So thank you. All right. Moving right along, public participation on non-agenda items. Not listed on the agenda. Public participation is now open. City Clerk, please announce the instructions for public participation.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on items not listed on the agenda. Please state your name for the record before addressing your comments. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes, subject to an overall 30-minute period unless announced otherwise. Callers wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by dialing *9 from your phone, and when instructed, dial *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining through Zoom may make a request by using the raise hand feature and select the unmute or microphone icon when instructed. We will first hear from speakers that are in person, and there were no written comments submitted.
Thank you so much for that, City Clerk. Before we begin public comment on non-agenda items, I do want to take the time to acknowledge Fire Station 39, who's here present from the LA County Fires Department. I believe that they do have an update on regards to the fires, and I'd invite them at this time right now to come forward to the dais and just kind of give us an update of what's going on in the fires right here in LA County. Again, thank you for all you do, and incredible gentlemen that are out there in these tough times. So with that said, I'll go ahead and pass it along to Fire Station 39 representatives. Thank you.
Good evening, council members. My name is Jesse Vasquez. I'm one of 3 fire captains here at Fire Station 39. We have a whole new, I basically just want to come and just show our support and say thank you for the support that we've been receiving from the city. It's been overwhelming. I don't have a lot of information on the fire because we have so many crews rotating through. Today is our day here at Fire Station 39, providing public safety to the city of Bell Gardens. We have other members of our station at the fires today, and tomorrow we'll be going out tomorrow. But more than anything, I just want to come and say on behalf of LA County Fire Station 39, my crew and myself, saying thank you to the city. Thank you for the support you've given us and the future support that we hopefully we get from you as a city. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
Before that, I want to open it up to the council and see if they have any questions as well. But what can we do, right? What can we as a city of Bell Gardens do to not only help you as first responders, but at the same time help out the victims that potentially have lost everything?
Yeah, right now we have a lot of programs in place that we deal with the Red Cross and the programs that are out there right now in the actual hot zone, which we call a hot zone. Everyone that comes in, we've had so many people come to the fire station and want to drop off supplies. We can't physically house all that stuff, so we're sending them to those locations at San Diego Park and Pacific Palisades, where they have all the logistics set up. We're not set up for that here at the fire station, so we're just redirecting everybody to those locations right now. But we've been giving so much support from the local citizens. They're coming from nearby cities, Southgate, Cudahy, Bell, Maywood. They're dropping off supplies that we're taking back with us on the fire engine to give to our guys out there.
Got it. Open it up to the council.
I don't have a question. I just really want to thank all of you, everybody involved right now, especially the firefighters. You guys are on the front lines, if not the firehouses, doing the work. And so it really has shown that the neighboring cities have come together for LA. you see the outpouring of everything that has happened this past week, the devastation to all the families. You know, there's many people that showed up to work today that lost their homes. And so just knowing that we are able to support you any which way, know that you have the support from the city. And if you do need anything, please don't hesitate to ask. And just from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for all that you're doing.
Thank you very much for your kind words. Thank you.
I have a couple of follow-up questions. I know you mentioned the Red Cross, Santa Anita Park, Palisades Fire, Hot Zone. This is some of our residents have gone on forums, right, and have been trying to figure out where is the proper place to go and donate, right? And I mean, the thing for me, myself, I was just thinking of maybe perhaps as a city, we can set up a box truck and we could have it parked at one of our parks and then just start loading it up with like blankets, diapers, baby formula, you name it, all the essentials for the victims. Um, I'm curious more so, I mean, in terms of the amount of donations, I've seen videos of where people are saying, hey, at this point, we're at capacity. We don't need, we need very specific donations. Any sort of liaisons that we're working with directly with organizations, the Salvation Army, who are the people that are leading these efforts about collecting donations? Is it the Red Cross or is it just a multitude of different orgs?
The biggest program out there right now, the association would be the American Red Cross. So our PIO section, who is a whole different unit in itself, I can get more information for you, Mr. Mayor, if you like, but we're directing everybody to the American Red Cross because people are coming up with money checks, which we can't handle. So they're asking for specific things like you see in the news, diapers, toiletries, blankets, clothes. They have an abundance of food and water. So it's very specific of what they need now. And it's going to continue on for the next several months.
Yeah. I know we're scheduled to have even worse winds tomorrow night, I think Tuesday night. I think there's like a red flag warning. I've been
That's
seeing the
correct.
map. How much longer do we have, how much is this gonna go for? Right? Do we have any idea of containment? I see the governor's coming out with different reports every day. Do we have any idea as to how much progress we're making on a day-to-day basis?
Based on the information we're getting, we're getting a staffing plan right now at 7 o'clock in the next 30 minutes at every fire station. The containment is very minimal. There's just so much land to cover. There's so much unexposed territory that we can't reach only with aircraft. We can't get actual hand lines. We got crews coming from Mexico. We got guys coming from all over the country to help out. If you guys all remember, this reminds me back when I first came on the job in 1993. We had the Malibu fires. If you guys remember those Malibu fires, this is 10 times worse than that. And that was devastating for us back then in 93. This is a lot worse. So there's no plan right now for, we don't know exactly, because these winds can pick up and we're back to the same scenario we were 2 weeks ago. And maybe in another part of the state of the county or in the east side in Inland Empire, there's a lot of potential out there. We don't have a regular fire season like we used to 20 years ago. Now it's an all year, every day thing for us now.
Yeah. Well, certainly our condolences are with the victims, and we appreciate all you're doing, all the firemen and firewomen that have been a part of this. Also, the collaboration between different agencies, right? I know there was a point where I think late last week, the sheriff also had our own police department request assistance. We've heard of people doing some looting in some of these areas too that we're
Yeah,
trying
it's bad.
and it's like it's outrageous. So just again want to say thank you so much for all you do, your services. It definitely does not go unnoticed, and always know that here on behalf of the Bell Gardens City Council, Bell Gardens City, and the people of Bell Gardens, we're here to support you.
Thank you
And
very
thank you
much,
for all
Mayor.
you do for our
Thank you.
community. Appreciate it.
Well, I want to say thank you, Station 39. Thank you for all that you do, not only right now, but what you've done endlessly throughout the years. I know, Captain, you're Bell Gardens native, coming
ma'am.
back to our community, serving your community, your home. Thank you for that. That means so much. This is our home too. This is your home. I hope this is not the one and only time we see you. I look forward to working with you, helping you, whatever you need. I mean it from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to close that with just saying that I would like to invite every one of the members of the board You guys are welcome to come to your fire stations, Fire Station 39, anytime. We'll have a warm, home cooked meal. We'll cook for you guys. We'll cook lunch, dinner. You guys are welcome to come and do a tour, come and ride alongs. We want to build that relationship with you guys. We would love for you guys to come and see actually what we do and go on calls with us. You know, a little different than our partners that we do with Bell Gardens PD, but you know, they're our brothers and sisters and we work together. We'd just like to share the opportunity for you guys to come and see what we do, because I've only been here at the station 8 months, and I've only seen one member come to the fire station, and I want to close that gap. I want to close that gap, and so you guys, we have a good working relationship with our chiefs. I'm one of 3 captains. The other 2 captains are newer as well to the fire station, but we have a lot of young guys at our new station. And I like to say that we have a whole different regime now than we did 15, 20 years ago at your Fire Station 39. Thank you.
I will certainly be there, and you guys take care out there, okay? Be safe.
Thank you.
And we're over here supporting you guys. And we'll be there for that home cooked meal that you mentioned.
We got great cooks, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Station 39. Thank you for your tireless efforts to protect our communities and the lives of the surrounding areas. So thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
much.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Appreciate it. All right. Moving back to thank you for that. Moving on to public comment on non-agenda items. I'd like to go ahead and call up BC to the mic. Thank you.
All right, Happy New Year. Boy, a lot of feel-good, happy talk, but let's get down to reality. Actually, the fire department, county or city, actually, they don't need you. You need to get out of their way. Let them do their job. Let's have a change of policy and make sure the hydrants have water. You know, we've got some leadership from you Democrats that can't seem to do anything right. And sometimes you wonder if it's intentional. I mean, we had the reservoirs were allegedly full, but the governor just wouldn't give the water down where it needed to go. Instead, he ran it off into the ocean for a fish. Protect a little minnow. Forget the people, right? And as far as the businesses coming up here, Lucero's Bakery, Food Forward, you shouldn't be doing anything like this. You need to change your direction and your policies. You can do that, make a taped example of that and put it on the city's website. Don't bring it down here and waste city business time, because the city attorney can tell you it's not legally city business for you to sit here and give out platitudes and take photo ops. That's all this is for. That's what they do in Downey. We have a former mayor that comes down with his excellence awards from the mayor for all his donors. And that's what they're doing it for. Nothing happens here. If you want to really help the businesses change direction, advocate for a tax decrease of the citizens and residents in the city. Go from 10.5 maybe down to 9.75. So they'll have more money in their pocket to go buy the products that these people are producing. They would love it. Roll back regulations on business, lower their taxes, give them a break. But you Democrats don't do that. You want to tax them to death because that's all you have. So stay out of their way, stay out of the firefighters' way. If you really want to go down there, go to the Rose Bowl, bring 300 burritos a night to the firefighters. They had so much coming in there, we had to go ahead and give it to the people that were displaced out of their homes. But it was good to see. It really was good to see. At least people were cooperating with each other. Because if that wasn't happening, it could get ugly real fast. So get out of everybody's way. Let's shrink government, lower the taxation for everybody. Thank you.
Moving right along, public participation on agenda items. City Clerk, please announce the instructions for public participation for items listed on the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on items listed on the agenda. Please state your name for the record. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Callers wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by dialing *9 from your phone, and when instructed, dial *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining us through Zoom may make a request by using the raise hand feature and select the unmute or microphone icon when instructed. We will begin to hear from the members of the public that are physically present in the council chamber, and we did not receive any written communication.
Thank you for that, City Clerk. Public comment on agenda items BC.
Words of Polly Shore, I'm back. 9.7. Estimation letter from Water Board. Boy, are we gonna be able to trust you Democrats to handle water? Oh man, maybe you'll go to Ghana for a photo op there. That was disgusting. It was absolutely disgusting. Gavin Newsom sits there and lies in the interview, repeatedly plays the bait and switch game. They both ought to resign or be kicked out immediately. What they have done is criminal. And they have no shame. No shame at all. I don't know if we can trust you to handle water. 9.9, safe streets for all. Well, we now know. Karen Bass says their #1 priority is making sure people are safe. Well, there's no credibility there. Absolutely none. Especially when she knew days in advance that was possibly going to happen. She took off and she swore previously that she was never going to leave the city while she was the mayor. But she did. Okay, safe streets for all. We know you don't really care about that. You don't care about what the people say. Now we have some new people on here that maybe change direction. We'll see how that goes. Hopefully it will. Hopefully it will. But the others, we saw your reaction during the pot shop debate. You didn't care one bit about what the people didn't want because you know better. You're a liberal Democrat. You know better. Now we've got looters. We've got crime repeatedly going on, people robbing stores, smash and grabs. But hopefully we're changing a direction with the new district attorney. Hopefully. Starting out good. Let's just keep going that way. Number 9.10, fire protection services. Oh man, you Democrats are collapsing right in front of everybody's eyes. We can't trust you with any fire protection. Give us a break. Be serious. And 10.4, discussion about immigration. You need to change direction. You need to cooperate with ICE and turn the people you find over that are illegal aliens to ICE to be deported. Not protecting people. That just shows us that you don't care about law and order like you claim. And we'll notice that in the next discussion. Thank you.
There's no objection by the members of the City Council. I will close public participation. Moving on to item number 8. City Manager, please give your report.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Chavez. This report's a little bit more lengthy than normal. It's been about 5 weeks since the last council meeting. So first off, this is the first council meeting of 2025. Happy New Year to everybody. Once again, welcome to re-elected Mayor Chavez, newly elected Mayor Pro Tem De La Rosa, newly elected Councilwoman Guillen, along with sitting council members Barcena and Sanchez. Speaking on behalf of myself and of the staff of the City of Bell Gardens, really excited to work under your direction for 2025. Lots happened in Bell Gardens and regionally in the county since the last council meeting. It's hard to do anything without thinking about and acknowledging the devastation of the recent fires. You know, the firefighters here, obviously from Station 39, the loss of life and property and the impact on tens of thousands of people's lives, whether direct or indirect, seems to pervade pretty much everything that we're doing as residents of LA County and people that work in LA County for the last week. I did want to acknowledge the City of Bell Gardens continues to support the efforts. We're still providing police resources. The chief had 2 officers signed up to the Rose Bowl today to help control and secure the areas that are impacted by the fires. I did also want to mention, just to tag along with what the fire captain said, you can text donations to the American Red Cross. If you text to 90999, so 90 and 3 nines, the word CA wildfires, the California wildfires, they'll send a text back with a form that you can fill out and donate. So that's directly for the wildfires, not just for the larger American Red Cross. Kind of bringing it back down more locally to Bell Gardens. I want to acknowledge some of the things that we've done over the last couple of weeks since the last council meeting, and then talk about some things that are coming up. On December 14th, we had our annual holiday parade and Winter Wonderland event. It was back to a nighttime event for this year after about 5 years of having it in the daytime because of COVID and that. The event went great. So thanks to all the departments that support these big events, from the city council to city mayor's office to recreation community services, police department, public works, community development, finance administration. It takes the whole city to make these events go as smooth and as well attended as they generally go. On December 17th and 18th, we held our monthly rent stabilization workshops for the tenants, property owners. On December 20th, we had our weekly art and yard sale, which did include our first free farmers market. So thank you to Food Forward and Feed and Support. Food Forward was here earlier. I think the mayor's asked if we can recognize Feed Support at the next council meeting. All the food was given away, as I understand, at that free farmers market. December 21st and 22nd were yard sale weekends throughout the city of Bell Gardens. So hopefully people were able to buy and sell some stuff just before Christmas, last minute gifts. City Hall was closed during the week of Christmas. We were open for the week of New Year's. Christmas tree pickups generally were occurring on regular trash days up until this last Friday. The city still has 2 drop-off locations through January 26th. That is at Public Works Yard and also at Veterans Park. It's Monday through Thursday, roughly 7 to 5 p.m. So if anybody out there still has your tree, there's still time to get rid of it before somebody does anything weird with it in a fire pit in July at the beach, which I think is what happens to all Christmas trees that don't get disposed of properly. Recreation Community Services held a winter day camps for 2nd to 8th graders on January 6th through January 10th. Generally, families, parents go back to work, and some of the kids are still off school. So though I know those day camps are popular, we hold them at Ford Park and Veterans Park. So if you're on the north side or south side of the city, you have an opportunity to participate in those programs. I did want to mention a program that we have going. It's a couple weeks old now, but every Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Bell Gardens Veterans Park at the Craft Room, we have basically an open art studio experience. You don't have to be experienced at art. You don't have to pre-register. You can just show up. There are art supplies available. You can bring art supplies if you want. So that's a program that we're continuously really just starting to work on growing. But I don't think I've mentioned that at previous city manager reports. Community Development is holding their monthly tenant workshop this Wednesday, so 2 days from now here at City Hall. It's at 4 p.m. We have the art and yard sale at Veterans Park this Friday. That's from 11 to 3. And we also have our second free farmers market. So the Food Forward group mentioned there's another farmers market coming up. That will be this Friday. And then after that, it will be twice a month starting into February. I want to acknowledge Monday, January 20th is Martin Luther King Day. That's this Monday. City Hall is closed in remembrance of the city rights leader. Back open after Monday. Next Tuesday, Community Development had a monthly workshop for their property owners. So this Wednesday is for tenants. Next Tuesday is for property owners. Also want to mention tonight's consent agenda has several items that when I looked at the items as a whole, and they're items that really ensure residents, business stakeholders live and work in a safe environment. We have the purchase of grant-funded vehicle for the PD to assist with DUI checkpoints and other similar activities. The development of a grant-funded Safe Streets for All action plan. Emergency fire protection services improvements for City Hall and the Police Department. Installation of 3 disabled resident parking spaces, along with funding that will be reimbursed to the city for water quality and also funding for transportation programs. And the water quality specifically is related to the DTSC environmental cleanup that's going on at the former Burke Oil site. Also want to note for the city clerk's office, and I think for all of the departments, this was a first city council successor agency agenda that was prepared with our new agenda management software. You know, like with any new system, we're excited to use it. I think there's a lot of benefits from the user perspective. We had some challenges with it this first go around, but we did a cutover process to really just get in there and get it done. The agenda was posted on time, a little later than normal, but we're working to get everything up to full speed. And again, I can share from a user perspective, I think there's generally excitement at the improvements that we see on the back end of things, and we just need to close out on the front end of things. And lastly, I'll just end by saying thanks to all the employees of Bell Gardens and Station 39 here in the city of Bell Gardens. Continue to deliver service to the residents, businesses, and stakeholders over a busy holiday season. They all have families, personal lives, obligations that they have to attend to, while at the same time prioritizing the services that they provide to the residents. So the effort's very much appreciated to the employees of the city of Bell Gardens, full-time, part-time, as well as the firefighters, paramedics up at Station 39 as well. Thank you, Mayor Chavez.
Thank you for that, City Manager. All right, well, with that said, we will move on to consent calendar. Does any member of the City Council successor agency wish to pull an item for separate discussion? All right, seeing none, can I get a motion to approve items number 9.1 through 9.12 of the consent calendar?
So move.
Yeah.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Barcena and the second by Councilmember Delon Sanchez. City Clerk, roll call, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Members of the council and successor agency, Barcena,
Yes.
Councilwoman Guillen,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sanchez,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem de la Rosa,
Yes.
and Mayor Chavez.
Aye. All right, moving on. City Manager, please announce discussion item number 10.
Thanks again, Mayor Chavez. Item number 10.1 is the local commission appointment list. It's staff's recommendation that the council review the commission's appointment list and by motion remove commissioners and or make appointments to the posted vacancies. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Does any member of the council have any appointments or changes to the local commissions?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Miguel Maravilla to the Education Commission.
I second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second for Miguel Maravilla for the Education Commission. Can we get a roll call, please?
If there's any other appointments, we can make it all at once.
Perfect, that'd be best. Anybody else want to make any changes?
Yeah. I'd like to appoint Kenneth Preciado for the Planning Commission, as well as Cristal Jimenez for the Education Commission.
Any other changes? All right, I would like to add Carlos Jose Barrera to the Planning Commission. Okay. Now, do we need a full motion?
Yeah, now you can have a full motion.
Can we get a motion for all the names with all the commissions?
I make a motion to add all the additions to the commissions that was made here today.
Do we have a second?
And motion to second.
Seeing we have a motion, a second, can we get a roll call, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council and successor agency, Barcena,
Yes.
Councilwoman Guillen,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sanchez,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem de la Rosa,
Yes.
and Mayor Chavez.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you for that. Moving right along, City Manager, please announce discussion item number 10.2.
Yes, thanks again, Mayor Chavez. As this being the first meeting in January, we have on the agenda city council appointments to external committees. Staff's recommendation that the council make changes, reappointments as necessary to the attached matrix of council appointments to external regulatory and advisory boards, commissions, and committees. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for that, City Manager. Quick question for City Clerk. Can we just go through the list and then we'll just do one final motion in a second?
Yes, you can if all council agrees.
Perfect. Okay, so I think to begin with the first one, the California Cities for Self-Reliance Joint Powered Authority. Believe the delegate is Francis de Leon Sanchez and alternate is Marco Barcena. Is that correct? All right, moving on. California Contract Cities Association, automatically myself, I'm appointed. I'd like to put forward for alternate Councilwoman Guillen. For California Joint Powers Insurance Authority, I believe that's Marco Barcena, delegate, Francis de Leon Sanchez, alternate, so that stays. I think so, if anybody wants to make any changes. Seeing none. Gateway Cities Council of Governments, delegate, Francis de Leon Sanchez, alternate. Any changes?
There, but I'm open for if somebody wants to take this particular commission, but I can take care of it. Just want to say I'm flexible. Yeah.
The thing is, I think, as we have the discussion, it's always about availability and just scheduling and our own schedules. It's difficult because a lot of these meetings happen during the week on top of the council meetings that we have on Mondays. So some of these are pretty late, sometimes into the evening, 6 or 7 o'clock on a Wednesday or a Thursday. So we just have to double check the availability. Okay, so I know Councilman Barcena has that. Anybody interested in being alternate? Okay. Got it. No, okay, seeing none, okay, we'll go ahead and Councilman Barcena alternate for that. Vector control, I believe that's already, we talked about that in the last meeting. And then next, Hub Cities Consortium, I believe that is vacant for delegate. I'd like to move forward in appointing Councilmember Barcena to be delegate. And then that would create a vacancy for the alternate position. And I'd like to appoint Councilmember Guillen as alternate for that. All right, Independent Cities Association. Believe that's Councilwoman De Leon Sanchez.
Can I appoint Miguel as delegate and as alternate Isabel?
Okay, perfect. Number 8, Los Angeles League of Cities, LA County Division. I think that's vacant right now.
I'd like to appoint you as a delegate and Marco as the alternate.
Okay. Number 9, City Selection, automatic myself, and then alternate, I believe that's Marco. Any changes for that? Okay. Sanitation District, that's myself, and I think Marco. Any changes for that? Seeing none. Southeast Animal Control Authority, I believe the delegate is Marco Barcena, and then I think.
Can I make a change to that? I would like to have Isabel Guillen be the alternate.
Okay, perfect. Any more changes for that? Okay. Southeast Community Development Corporation, I believe I'm the delegate, but I'd like to go ahead and instead appoint Miguel de la Rosa to delegate for that. And then alternate, I think Marco Barcena currently. And then finally, we have SCAG, Southern California Association of Governments. That's Councilmember Barcena, and then myself as alternate.
And again, this is one that I can remain on, but I'm open if anyone wants to take it at this point. Yeah.
Anybody interested in being a representative for SCAG? I know that they meet once a year in the desert.
It's a conference once a year, and correct me if I'm wrong, City Manager, but I believe even if you're not a delegate and you want to go, you can still go. Yeah. But if you're a delegate, then you go so you can vote on the issues.
SCAG is an interesting one because it's one of those that it's a very many different agencies are a part of it. Transportation agencies, air quality agencies, counties, cities, special districts like water associations are a part of it too. So, and it's countywide. So it's not only LA, I mean, it's region wide. So it's not only LA County, it's Orange County, San Bernardino County, Riverside County. Yeah. All right. Okay. Seeing no changes. Okay, perfect. Moving right along. So with that said, can we get a motion to approve all of those changes in a second?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Guillen, a second by Councilwoman De Leon Sanchez. Can we get a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Members of the Council and Successor Agency, Barcena,
Yes.
Councilwoman Guillen,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sanchez, Mayor Pro Tem De La Rosa,
Yes.
and Mayor Chavez.
Aye. Thank you for
Motion
that.
passes.
Moving right along, so item number 10.3, fiscal year 2024-2025 mid-year revenue update.
Yes, thanks again, Mayor Chavez. As you stated, this is we're halfway through the fiscal year. Revenues are much easier for us to look at it in a halfway through the fiscal year perspective because they're generally based on what we've received. There's some accrual process, but we thought it was important with some issues that we're seeing and some trends that we're seeing midway through the fiscal year to bring an item to council to just discuss, how things are looking and some things that we need to look at on a going forward basis. So our Director of Finance and Administrative Services, Manuel Carrillo's here to give a presentation to run through some of the details and specifics. So I'll turn it over to Manuel. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. O'Kelly. Honorable Mayor and City Council, this evening I will be providing a brief mid-year revenue update for the current 24-25 fiscal year. Just a point of clarification, we will provide a more comprehensive mid-year budget review at a later date, at a later council meeting in February, which is typically what we do for the schedule. But as Mr. O'Kelly indicated, we just wanted to bring this to everyone's attention, some key items in terms of our general fund revenue. On June 10th, 2024, the city adopted a general fund budget with revenues of $46,236,000 and expenditures of $46,163,000, resulting in a surplus of $72,000. This slide shows the general fund adopted revenue items by revenue source for fiscal year 24-25. As we can see, the top 5 revenue sources are, of course, the bicycle casino, in lieu motor vehicles, property leases, sales and use tax, as well as Measure A add-on sales tax. This slide provides a percentage breakdown of the adopted general fund revenues by source. As you can see, the largest being the bicycle casino at $42.9 million. One item I would like to point out is that in the last few years, the bicycle casino's percentage has significantly reduced. At one point, the bicycle casino accounted for as much as 50% of the city's total general fund revenue. This next slide is a continuation of the previous. However, it shows a visual of the top 7 general fund revenue sources, which account for approximately 85% of the city's general fund revenue. On this slide, we will dive a bit deeper into the bicycle casino's performance up to this point in the fiscal year, as well as how we project it moving forward for the remainder of the year. As previously indicated, June 10th, 2024, the city adopted card room revenue for fiscal year 24-25 at $19,836,000. Up to this point in the fiscal year, which consists of July through December, the bicycle casino has generated approximately $7,279,000. This consists of actuals that we received reported from July through November, and a projection provided by the casino as a result of course, cutoff and calculation dates leading into the next month. Typically, the way it works is the casino will generate a check to the city on the 15th of the following month. So for example, at this point, we don't have the final calculated figures for December, but we have been provided with an approximation by the casino at this point. And based on the approximate card room revenues received up to this point and reasonable estimates based on the recent performances, we project the end of the year card room revenue for 24-25 will come to approximately $16,672,000. This would result in a difference between budgeted and projection of $3.1 million below the adopted amount. We want to point out that there was a high level of construction activity on high dollar gaming rooms during the period of August through October that caused a negative revenue impact. Upon further review, November and December revenues have increased and are closer to pre-construction revenues. And projections for the remainder of 24-25, we do assume that steady revenue consistent with the December revenue figures. An important item that needs to be identified as it relates to the gaming
And
industry in our state.
Manuel, if I could
Yes,
just
sir.
pause you real quick,
Of
sorry.
course, of course.
Sorry to interrupt there.
No problem.
Just before Manuel moves into the tribal lawsuit part, just to kind of put a finer point on, if you could go back to the
Sure,
one
of course.
slide. So, the card room, even though we've, diversified revenues to the extent possible as of this time, we still rely, again, 42% of the general fund is on the card room. And so card room revenues across the country, I think, are down by about 10%. And on top of, as Manuel said, they had construction, particularly in their high dollar gaming rooms, where they generally make more revenues per person than some of the other rooms there. But once those months of August, September, October, it's difficult to see, there's a hole there from the projections, and it's pretty difficult to see any possibility to fill that hole. So that negative $3 million that you see at the end of the chart there, realistically, what we'll be looking at next is our expenditures to see, how much lower can we come in on our expenditures for the fiscal year so that, we can come closer to a balanced budget on an actual basis. And, the likelihood that we're $3 million less on expenditures is not very likely. We're working through that right now just to see. But generally, I think what this is really foretelling is that the fiscal year 24-25, I think actuals will probably come in somewhere in the $1 to $2 million negative range, which would be a use of fund balance, which is why we have fund balance. But somewhat unexpected, I think, from the actual revenue generator being the card room, and definitely from our perspective as well too. So with that, I think what we see there is a little bit of a softening in the gaming revenues. And then that's there regardless of this next slide that I'll let Manuel go back into. Thank you, Manuel.
Thank you, Mr. O'Kelly. An important item that needs to be identified as it relates to the gaming industry in our state is, and its subsequent impact on the bicycle casino, is the impact of Senate Bill SB 549. SB 549 was signed into state law this past September 24. It allows tribes to sue private card rooms in an effort to stop the playing of certain table games. Tribes did file a lawsuit on January 2nd of this year. A judge will decide if private card rooms can continue to allow certain table games. Private card rooms across the state, as well as the bicycle casino, believe that these certain table games are allowable, and they will take legal action in defense of the lawsuit. The Card Room JPA is working with other card rooms, consultants, and industry groups to support and defense of the lawsuit. This leads us to the question, what is the next step? And what can city leadership and management do to proactively address a projected decrease in card room revenue? Staff and management will continue to actively monitor revenue as usual. We will continue to work through the Card Room JPA in an effort to represent the card room in all possible efforts moving forward. The development of contingencies to address any possible long-term reduction in card room revenue, moving not just this year, but moving beyond in other fiscal years. The continue to develop additional revenue opportunities such as possibly retail cannabis, the potential sale of the city water system, which of course continues to operate at a loss for the city. General fee studies to assure that fees are being charged at a market rate. And that does conclude my report.
Manuel, before you move on to the conclusion on there, I think, the key that I want to point out that Manuel said, is number 3, right? As soon as we see some softness in the card room revenues, Manuel and I start meeting regularly to really look to see what does this mean for us? What other easy opportunities are there on the revenue side? And then on the expenditure side, those are really the two sides. It's always more difficult on the expenditure side to reduce those, right? Reduction in expenditure generally means a reduction of some kind of service. So that's a little more difficult. That's where we're spending. I think that's where we're going to spend more time over the next couple of months is on the expenditure side to see where we can, where we'll have some savings, where can we generate some additional savings on the expenditure side, because the revenue side, there's not that much room left for anything. On one of the slides, Manuel showed the top 7 revenue sources make up like 85% of the revenues. And when you look at those, we're maxed out on sales tax. Other than generating new businesses that generate sales tax And there's a very incremental increase. We're maxed out from that perspective. We're maxed out on property tax to the extent that property taxes increase helps a little bit, not significantly. And so really when we look to see what are the revenue opportunities that actually can move the needle in the millions of dollars of range, the first two bullet points are really the two there that can move the needle. The general fee study to a lesser degree, but I know in some cases, some of our fees are pretty old on the fee, and that's been an effort to keep costs down for residents and non-residents. But the first one, retail cannabis, obviously the council approved some development agreements. Some of those are in progress, maybe a few more coming. The potential sale of the water system, really what we're focusing all of our energy on, or a lot of our energy on now, is getting a cleanup system for our one existing well. We have $12 million in federal money that we're still working towards receiving, in addition to some other lawsuit monies that may be available. And the reason that would actually help the city is because the whole city is subsidizing that water system that, is about 35% of the city receives the water. It's subsidized by the whole city to the tune of about $1 million a year. The water fund owes the city somewhere in the neighborhood by the end of this fiscal year about $9 or $10 million. So a potential sale of the water system ultimately, especially if it's a water system that already has a cleanup system included in it, would generate revenues to pay back the general fund, and it would eliminate the need for the city to continue to subsidize the water in the city's water system. And then the general fee study there. Beyond that, there are things such as a hotel tax. We've looked at that in the past. Doesn't move the needle much, maybe 150, 160,000 a year. Fees probably on that lower side, maybe in the 500 to 700,000 a year maximum potential. So this will be a significant challenge for the council, for the city manager, for finance admin, all the department heads, I think over the next 6 to 12 months. And the work is being done behind the scenes, and this was really the first step to bring this to council to make everybody aware of it. And then this is, I think, a normal cycle that you'll see in businesses and governments. There are times where things are really good, then there's times where the economy falters a little bit, or circumstances change and revenues that were there aren't there. So we're doing the things that we should do to adjust for these realities. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Manuel to finish out the presentation. Thanks, Manuel, for your patience.
Thank you, Mr. O'Kelly. That does conclude my presentation. I'd be more than glad to answer any questions that council might have. And thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for that, Manuel. Appreciate it. Open it for discussion.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and thank staff for this report. And I remember, I was remembering when that $3 million amount came up when I first ran for office. I think back then there was a 2.7 million budget deficit. And I just remember that number. And like Mike said, the numbers, they go up and down. Nevertheless, we're still responsible for the future of our city, and, times change, and the economy is a little bit unstable. There's a lot of volatility in the markets. However, I do have some ideas. They might not be as impactful as the first two that you mentioned, Mike. But I've been thinking, looking at other cities around here, and some of the programming that they do in recreation, they actually charge for parking for non-residents, right? That's something that I saw in Downey that they're doing. I don't know how much revenue we can get from that, but I do know that we having our fields here at Fort Park being one of the, I guess, most popular fields in the entire region, maybe we can consider something like that. Again, making it a priority that we do not charge our residents. I feel like our residents deserve to use those fields, those parking spots free of charge, but just something to explore. I don't know exactly what the economic, the fiscal impact would be, how much we can actually get from there. But that's just an idea if we can look into that. And then another one would be related to the pool that is coming up soon, and I've mentioned this in our committee, but there's a international team looking to practice for the Olympic Games, swimmers. And I have some contacts for that, and maybe we can get some type of contract or something where we can start generating revenue that way. And I would welcome my colleagues also, not necessarily here if you don't have any ideas yet, but to start getting those gears going in terms of how we can generate that revenue. And of course, all of the businesses that we've been working on getting licensed, I know that the amount of revenue that we're expecting and anticipating is definitely up there in the more relevant amounts. And I hope we can continue to prioritize that. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councilwoman Barsana. Anybody else?
Yes, I have been thinking about our city's budget for quite some time now, just because I am on the JPA and I have been following SB 549 and the fact that we saying we as the card rooms are being sued, and the first name on that lawsuit is Park West Bicycle Club Casino. And so the fact that we're the first ones listed on that lawsuit is very concerning, because right away a lot of people are not gonna finish reading who else is in the lawsuit and right away identify our casino. We know that we do get a lot of revenue from them for our overall budget. And so I think some of the options that you guys have presented here as far as doing a general fee study, the potential sale of our water system are things that I have also thought about. So I'm glad to see that there. I know with the water system, it's something that ever since I've been on council and even prior to, it's been an ongoing conversation, of how much are we actually at a loss, at a deficit every single time we talk about this. I know that water's precious, especially for a city to own their own water system, but I think we really need to dive into it and look at what are the pros, what are the cons of keeping this water system. If it is going to continue putting us in a deficit, then we as a council, we as a city really need to look at that and consider that. I know that's something that we don't really want to look into because we want to say, let's keep our water. But I think at this point, just projecting forward, we really need to be realistic at this point. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you for that. Anybody else?
Has a comment. I do have a question in regards to the water system. In terms of difficult decisions, I know that previous council, including myself, we had to rework the way that we were doing our fee schedule, basically. Can you tell us something about that, city manager? Is that something that kind of got us out of the woods enough, or is it just generally something that we should be looking at further?
Yeah, so the water rate increase that was approved by the council approximately 4 years ago was the first water rate increase, I believe, since the city bought the water system in 1994. So the rates were significantly, it would be like the city selling gas to a third of the residents for $1.25 a gallon at everybody else's expense. So it was something that was 20 years, 30 years in the making. I believe we're coming up to the final year of that water rate increase. That really kept up with the costs prior to the state's new testing methodology that required the water that's produced by our well is the same water that's been being produced by our well for decades. What really happened about 3 years ago is the state changed the testing requirements and the notification requirements. The notification requirements, are pretty intense. They describe, if you're young, if you're old, if you're sick, if you're pretty much almost everybody, you want to be careful drinking the water. And so the staff's recommendation at the time and the council's approval was to spend the extra about $1 million a year to not provide that water to the residents and not have to give them that notification and provide clean water, that's surface water from the Colorado River that's significantly more expensive than it costs for us to pump water. Other cities around us did not make that decision necessarily. There's a larger one nearby that produces the same water with similar results to our water and just provides the notification. So the initial water rate increase did not account for this additional purchase of water, and also did not account for the cost to build a 16, $18 million purification system for our well. And so while it did help not make the matter worse by approving water rates, those water rates really got us up to the level of where we probably should have already been around 2008, 17 or 18 when the city started losing money on the water system. So that was a long answer, but Councilmember Barsina, it helped to not make the problem worse, but the circumstances changed within a year of that last water rate approval.
So would it be safe to say big part of the issue now is just the contamination of the well, which is basically over the threshold on PFAS and PFAS that is
Yes.
the main.
If right now, let's just say all of a sudden miraculously that water was testing completely perfect, and we would say, oh, we don't even need a cleaning system, we can now revert back. We would, even in that case, which isn't realistic, but let's just say that would be like the best case scenario, we still would be at a deficit on our water rates regardless of that. So it really compounds. And so really the way that, and the wheels turn very slowly. We've been aware of this $12 million that is winding its way through the federal appropriations process for about 12, I'd say at least 12 months or so, 12 to 16 months. I don't think it's slowed us down as of yet because we're still wrapping up the design of the system. But as these wheels turn slow, we're obviously spending that $1 million a year on the cleaner water and, getting up to the $9 or $10 million that's owed to the general fund. The short answer though, Councilmember, is yes, it did help, but it really wasn't enough at the time. And I think it would have been difficult even to bring a water rate that would have incorporated some of these unknowns at the time. It would have just looked so significant, I think, compared to 1994 rates. So I do want to ask the Public Works Director, as we're coming to the end of this recent water rate increase that was approved a few years ago, and we are waiting for this federal money. We've had discussions about running another Prop 218 process to potentially bring another water rate item back to the council, because the funding and the design and the implementation of a cleanup of the well is still going to probably be a 3-year process at best. And in the meantime, resources will still just be going out the door. That's a public process similar to what the Public Utilities Commission does for all of their regulatory rates and that. So I wonder if the Public Works Director could just provide for the council kind of a timeline if we're to bring back another 218 process to potentially look at the water rates again in the near future.
Yeah, Mr. O'Kelly, we're at about 65% level of design for the ion exchange PFAS treatment system. It's working its way through the State Water Resources Control Board, so I would expect another 3 to 6 months process. And keep in mind, it's the ion exchange and also a booster and reservoir package. So it's actually about $12 million. And the wild card is, as was mentioned, this federal earmark of $12 million. If we do attain those federal funds, it would offset the costs. If for whatever reason we do not get that federal funding, then we would incorporate those extra costs into the 5-year Prop 218 proceedings.
So Councilmember, and I think for the rest of the council, I think it would be prudent. We've done a water update for the council. I'd say it's probably been about 12 months from now where we talked about designing a system, the different options, the costs and things of that nature. I think it would make sense if we bring another item, maybe not the next meeting, but the following meeting to give another update with what would be the next steps and decisions for the council to make to keep that process moving in the right direction while we're looking at some of these financial challenges, if that would be okay by the mayor and the rest of the council.
Any more discussion? Oh,
Yeah, so to my understanding, there's about $12 million in funding, right, in the pipeline of funding. What is the proposed estimate to get the water to the standard to distribute?
So I said 16, 18 million. I may be high on that though. If I'm not accurate on that, Bernie, please correct me for the total dollar amount, regardless of who's funding it to clean up the water.
It's about $6 million for the booster and reservoir, another 6 million for the actual ion exchange system for the PFAS treatment. Combined, that's where we get approximately $12 million. Now with obviously economy scales, when we put both out to bid, and also cost escalation, it might fluctuate, might be a couple percentage points above or below.
I mean, so the short answer there would be, is if these were items that were just off the shelf and we wanted to buy an ion exchange with a booster pump and the other items Bernie mentioned, and we could just go order them and buy them off the shelf, we would be expecting to pay about $12 million just to purchase some, and have them installed. I think that includes installation as well.
That's correct.
Thank you for that. I do have a couple of comments, and I appreciate the discussion, the lively discussion we're having around this issue. Obviously, the economics of our city are very important, and we need to make sure that we do have, hopefully, by the end of this year, we have to have a balanced budget. You know, and it's interesting because as we approach this, you know, it's things that we have to sort of project for the worst, right? And especially with this whole lawsuit, that is difficult. And I just want to take a moment to appreciate all the work that Council Member De Leon Sanchez has done with the JPA, Park West Casino as well, who have been great partners to our city since their existence, really. For me, I think when we look at what different options are presented, right, the selling of the water system, the general fee study, and that was the first option was at the moment. I'm curious, for the general fee study, when was the last time we updated the?
We updated some items on the recreation community services side, mostly for non-residents, about 3 to 4 years ago. But we have, I think on the community development side, I think there's opportunities for some of the fees there are pretty outdated, probably in the 10 to 15 year range. I think on the public works side, probably on the police department side, finance and administrative side. So pretty much everywhere except recreation community services.
Since 2009, we haven't updated.
Except for recreation.
With the
community
exception of
services.
recreation.
Yeah.
Okay. If we were to potentially want to pursue that route, all right, as an option to alleviate the situation, how much would be projected that we sort of would we be out of the water, or how's that looking?
Well, not necessarily. That's why I think if I were to just estimate off the top of my head, I think the fees have to match the cost of the services. So if we say the cost right now to issue a permit for some specific type project through the community development department, let's say we charge $150, but we know time and materials, that's really a $300 charge. You know, I think really if we would go through general fee study, we're probably in the 500,000 to 700,000 range of total revenue, that we would have justification to show that that's what the actual cost is. So it's one of those things that we should do regardless, but it wouldn't make up, you know, a long-term continued $2 or $3 million shortfall from the card room. But it's something that you should do regardless, and you know, it would help towards the goal.
I definitely would like to pursue that, moving forward with something of updating the general fee. And I know that another thing that's always brought up in the development world is the development impact fees, right? That's another thing. And I think as far as development within the city, I know that we've talked about discussions of economic development and community development, really, expansion of the housing department, and, you know, make sure that we meet our RENA numbers.
Mayor, we did
Yeah.
just bring development impact fees in December
That's what I know.
23. We just adopted it for the first time.
Got it. Yeah. So I mean, I know that was recent, but for the other fees, in regards to the general fee study, it's 2009. We just entered 2025. We're looking at 15 years of outdated fees potentially, right? 16, 15.
Yeah, and the way that would work.
With the exception of recreation community services.
Correct. We would issue an RFP, bring on a consultant, do the fee study, present the fee study to the council, and then you guys can go from there.
Yeah. Well, I think
And,
perhaps maybe in the future, I'd say rather than sooner rather than later, we pursue something of that sort. I think in regards to the selling of the water system, I know that that's one of the options presented, or potentially an option that the city council can take as a whole. I know it's a much lengthier process that involves an election and putting it up to the ballot. And when's the next regularly scheduled election projection? I think it's till
Next
year. Yeah. You know, so I don't know, just options, just discussion options. I wanted to bring up a special sort of opportunity that I've seen, and something that interests me. I remember, I don't know if for the folks that were here the past year and a half, one of the things that I was pushing for, I'd say maybe in 2023, late 2023, was about the registration for vacant lands and vacant properties and upwards of 5,000 square feet. I think that was one of the options, and I think legal at one point was looking into potentially whether if it was going to be a tax. Then if that was to be a tax, we'd have to put it up for the voters. I believe we had a PowerPoint presentation. Community development at the time director, or I should say deputy city manager Romo, presented 49 or so different lots that are somewhat vacant or underdeveloped. I'm not saying that is an opportunity, but depending on how we would go, whether that be a registration fee or a special tax of sort, that I know cities have pursued in the past. I'm not saying that's going to be a big dent in recovering the cost that we don't have, but just an option. Another thing that I'm looking at, and especially during the whole retail cannabis discussion that we had in the past, was one of the things I continually reemphasized was the amount of liquor stores that we had across the city, right? Considering that we're a 2.4 square mile city, we have upwards of 16 liquor stores within these 2.5 square mile radius. And just on my own little quick research, I know that there's cities like Santa Monica, West Hollywood, Oakland, Berkeley that have some sort of tax on alcoholic beverages. I'd be interested in doing more research and seeing what kind of opportunities there are when it comes to taxing, particularly alcoholic beverages. Now, I think depending on what city you're looking at, I think like West Hollywood has it tailored to like nightlife, because obviously they have a nightlife community there. They have a vibrant community when it comes to that. I think Oakland has like a business license tax alcohol. Berkeley has something, a soda tax. That's an interesting concept, a soda tax. Sugary beverage tax. But for me, it's I think that there's an opportunity with the amount of liquor stores that we have in this city that just consistently sell alcohol, and they're not afraid to literally hide it in their name. They literally explicitly say liquor on it. So I'm interested in pursuing that. I'd like to see some sort of research done on that, and perhaps I'm curious to hear if any of the council would be interested in hearing or seeing what other opportunities there are when it comes to tackling that. I also did research on cigarettes, right? A cigarette tax of some sort. I think Fresno has a cigarette tax. That's another city I looked at. San Francisco. Obviously, these are bigger cities, and I don't know if the fact that we're a general law city as compared to a charter city would allow us to do such a tax. But I feel that for any tax, it has to go back to the voters. And I think with a topic such as alcohol or cigarettes that tend to have a bad stigma, I think it'd be a win-win, right, for the community and for our city as well. So just an idea, just a discussion. But with that said, if anybody has any more discussion points, this is your opportunity. And if not, yeah, absolutely. Councilmember Delon Sanchez.
You brought up some good points. I think it's a matter of not looking at just one option, but exploring multiple options. Like it's been stated, there's not going to be one option here that's going to bring us the revenue that we need, of this deficit. So being able to look at multiple options and seeing which ones are going to be best for our community, for our residents that we feel comfortable with implementing, I think would be the best at this time. But for us to look at just one sole option, say, okay, well, if we solve our water, like that's going to solve everything. Or if we increase our fees, that's going to be it. No, I think it's going to be multiple things, unfortunately, that we are going to have to implement. So.
Thank you for that. And I completely agree with you. I think it's not going to be a one size fits all approach that, oh, we're going to do something and we're back in in the
What about
spotlight.
taxing hot Cheetos? Have you considered
Hot
that?
Cheetos? I don't know. I mean,
Just kidding. I don't think that'd be a very popular.
I don't know. Is that Frito-Lay? Who's the makers of hot Cheetos? I don't know if they're Lay's ones, but I don't know. It'd be interesting seeing all these different, But I think for me, what I don't want is obviously the small mom and pops, right? And to an extent, liquor stores might try to voice that one and whatnot. But I mean, for me, it's Troy's is a staple. That's an example. Luceto's is a staple, right? And I don't know. That's just my own perspective. But anyways, completely agree with you, Councilmember Delon Sanchez, on that point. And I'm interested in seeing as well, how is it, right? We had some revenues in the piggy bank. Let's just say that we had some revenues and so quite a substantial amount. And obviously now we're using most, if not a chunk of them for the aquatic center. But I'm curious to see what happened between the years to accumulate all of that, that rainy day fund, I should say.
Yeah, so in the last 5 to 6 years or so, the general fund balance went from around 19 million to somewhere in the 31, 33 million. As that fund balance was building up, the goal there was to be able to fund the portion of the aquatic center that's not funded with grants. So the aquatic center is a $31 million aquatic center. We've got about $16 million of grants. We knew it would cost about 15 million from the general fund to pay for the rest of the pool. We also had brought an item to council looking at financing options, but when you look at the interest rate, for $15 million over 20 years, you would pay like $25 or $26 million back, a significant amount of interest. So the balance has come up significantly for the purpose of ideally for, paying off the rest of the pool. So the pool's owned free and clear. The fund balance at that point, is still a healthy balance, considered a healthy fund balance for a city with the general fund revenue that we have. But we can see with a single revenue source that's 42% of revenues, we saw during COVID how big of an impact that can be when that revenue source is either eliminated or reduced, and it's significant. So the good news on it is the city is, I think, positioned well from the fund balance perspective in that those additional revenues have been put aside, to pay for the rest of the pool and then really have us in the same spot that we were in prior to having a pool. So, I think the goal from here is, and we're talking the revenue side of it again, because that's a side of it that doesn't reduce services at all, right? There's a whole separate conversation that, to be fair, is usually more difficult than the conversation that we're having now. But if you can fix some things on this side, you don't really have to go as far and hard into the other side on the expenditure side and the services side of things. So fund balance has grown significantly over the last 5 or 6 years for the purpose of paying off the remainder of the pool.
All right. Well, with that said, anybody else want to make a comment? Okay. Seeing none, thank you again, city manager, director, appreciate it for all your hard work. And it's important that you do our due diligence, we do our due diligence, having this conversation here and seeing where we are as a city. So again, appreciate all the hard work and look forward to making it out of this on a positive side. All right. With that said, can we have a motion and a second, please?
I'll move to receive and file.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Councilwoman Barcena and a second by Councilwoman Delon Sanchez. Roll call, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Members of the Council Successor Agency, Barcena? Councilwoman Guillen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sanchez?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem de la Rosa?
Yes.
And Mayor Chavez?
Aye. All right, with that said, we're going to go ahead and take a quick 5-minute recess, quick stretch, restroom break. Well, with that said, we'll be back at 7:43 p.m. Thank you. All right. Thank you for that. Moving on to discussion item number 10.4, discussion of immigration issues.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Chavez. We have a PowerPoint presentation here that I will give myself. So this item's to talk about current events related to immigration, related to the City of Bell Gardens, the residents and other stakeholders that come into the City of Bell Gardens and work. Once this PowerPoint comes up, I'll move through a little more succinctly. All right. Okay. So just background, some of this I think is fairly obvious to people. There was a presidential election here back in November of 2024. Since that time, there's been recent incoming federal administration comments regarding immigration enforcement that have raised concern. Basically commentary about mass deportations, some commentary on priorities and things of that nature. But obviously that causes concern for residents that may not have a legal status in the United States, particularly in a community like the City of Bell Gardens, where a significant portion of the residents are immigrants, whether legal or otherwise. Those concerns are heightened compared to other communities potentially, and staff is aware that the council hears those concerns, and so wants to bring some information to talk about some things that are already in place and haven't been in place for a number of years. And think that it's important for Bell Gardens to reaffirm its commitment to dignity, inclusivity, compassion, respect for all residents, recognizing the vital contributions of immigrants, fostering trust, cooperation between residents and city officials, ensuring public safety and due process for all. You'll see those are the same goals and commitments under Senate Bill 54 that was passed by the state of California about 7 years ago or so, also known as the Sanctuary State Law. The City of Bell Gardens, being a city within the state of California, is required to follow those standards that are set forth by that Senate bill. Essentially restricts state and local agencies from assisting in federal immigration enforcement. The city has abided by Senate Bill 54 since its inception in protecting residents. The question that comes up pretty regularly are questions such as, does the police department work with ICE? Does ICE tell the police department or anybody in the city, hey, we're coming into town to do immigration sweeps? And the answer to that, in talking with the police chief, current and previous police chief, the answer is generally no. We're not informed by ICE, hey, we're coming into town on a regular basis. According to the chief, maybe twice a year, they may call dispatch and say, we're already in town doing some operation. And by the time the police are even aware of it, they may not even be in town anymore. There's no cooperation or assistance. I think it's important to say the police department doesn't impede anything they're doing either. If ICE were to call dispatch and say, we're at this address conducting operations, which apparently is the level of detail that they would provide, the police don't go out and arrest ICE or interfere in any way in accordance with the law. But also, the police don't provide any information to ICE. They don't work with ICE on a regular basis. So those are questions that come up. I've talked with the police chief, and you can ask him directly here when we get to the questions section as well, if you'd like to hear directly from the police department. And so from a staffing perspective, from the city manager down the rest of the staff, the city plans to continue to abide by Senate Bill 54 and continuing to provide those protections. And to be fair, we're not generally really challenged on that, not at least in the last 5 to 7 years. We're not challenged or demanded or required to try to violate that Senate bill either. So it isn't something that's difficult for us to do. The city actions as far as supporting residents and addressing concerns. So not ignoring that there are concerns out there, I think rightfully so based on the commentary that's out there. Currently, the city continues to monitor immigration issues. So pay attention. A significant portion of the department heads and staff, myself included, were on a webinar held by the California Attorney General Bonta on Friday to just remind everybody about Senate Bill 54 and also specifically as it relates to some areas that we don't always consider as city, areas such as what happens in a library, what happens in a university, what happens in a mental health setting or a shelter setting. So we continue monitoring those issues and the potential impacts that it might have on the City of Bell Gardens residents. We have outreach, but we recognize that in this, I think, environment of heightened concern, that we need to increase outreach to residents through social media and other avenues to work harder to inform residents about their rights and resources that are available and to provide information on immigration-related services. We have worked with several organizations and continue to work with several organizations and make referrals to several organizations on a regular basis. There's a couple examples here on the PowerPoint that show some workshops that we've helped promote. Specifically, we make referrals to the Mexican American Opportunity Foundation, the Central American Resource Center, and CHIRLA, the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights. Generally, those services, just in summary, that are made available that we don't provide directly, but through referral or deportation defense, DOC applications, visa applications, citizenship applications, workshops, and educational resources. In conclusion, I just wanted to make sure the council was up to speed with, number one, the level of interaction that the city has with ICE, which is very close to none. To remind the council that we have worked with these agencies before in providing referral services and helping to promote workshops. Make sure the council understands from the staff's perspective, there's no reason that we would not continue to abide by Senate Bill 54 and protect residents. And that also that we should increase our collaboration and cooperation with residents. It's essential for the continued success for the city, for the residents that are here to feel safe and feel that the city and the city council has their back and is protecting their rights in accordance with the law. And so with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. The police chief's here to answer any questions. I think that's generally an area of concern. And to take any further direction, ideas that the council may have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for that, City Manager. I'll go ahead and open it up for discussion. If any member like City Council wants to share. Okay. I'll go ahead and start it. I have a question for the chief, particularly with any sort of, and thank you so much, City Manager, for that presentation. Really appreciate it, and also Hylas for presenting that. Thank you. It's an interesting time right now, especially with so much that's unexpected. I've had conversations with legal about this in regards to what can we expect literally almost a week to the day, right? Because he gets sworn in a week from today. Ironically, the same day Martin Luther King Jr. And it's really frightening. It's frightening for our community. Residents have reached out. They've sent over messages, and they've heard about raids that are happening, particularly not here in LA County, but in Kern County, for example, in Bakersfield. I know that's the one that's been confirmed. But Chief, do they? And I know City Manager already touched on it, but does ICE ever notify us if they're doing something like that? Do they do immigration checkpoints where they can stop, similar to how we do our DUI checkpoints? But can they do that here?
Well, to answer your question would be, I mean, yeah, they could do it if they wanted to, but I could tell you that I've been here for 21 years and I never seen anything like that. As Mr. O'Kelly stated, I could tell you the times that I have been notified by my staff, because one of the things that I have in the guidelines and the procedures on the day-to-day operations, that when any federal agency, especially ICE, when they come into the city, that I'm to be notified. And I could tell you that since I've been chief, I was probably notified once, and that's something that Mr. O'Kelly was describing. Is they'll come in and they'll just check in with dispatch, and they'll just say, we're here, and they'll give out the address, and that's it. They won't give us any more details. They won't ask for any assistance. That's probably been about twice. And that procedure still is the same. But that's as far as we have, as far as any notification from them. Normally, we don't work with them, or they don't work with us.
Is there any, if we happen to our police department happens to be engaging with a criminal, and we happen to buck them, and we're trying to turn them over, does their legal status in the country have anything to do with this? At one point, do we turn over them to ICE, anything like that? Because that's been questions that I've gotten from our residents. Does our police department have any duty to turn over criminal undocumented individuals to ICE?
So maybe this helps if I could kind of give you an example. Say that, you know, there's a resident or a visitor that comes by and let's just say they have, you know, no license. So then our officers will, you know, proceed with checking and verifying they don't have a license. They'll get a citation. We won't check any other status. Let's just say that there's somebody that gets arrested for domestic violence, which is a felony. So they'll be brought into our jail. We'll book them under that process, which is the state process, and we don't get into any other details or any data systems that the federal government uses. We don't have the capability and we won't even go there.
Thank you for that information. Open it up again for discussion if any other council member wants to chime in.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and give some comments on this item. I don't know if I'm the only immigrant on the council, but I think I am. Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, so yeah, it is scary, right? As someone that was not born in this country, I feel like even I'm on the chopping board at this point with the federal situation that we have going on. So it's real. So I was happy when I heard that Mayor Chavez was thinking of putting an agenda item on there. However, I was a little bit concerned because I take this very seriously. So usually if I wanted to see an item on the agenda, I would want to know what kind of direction we're moving in. I know that staff worked on several options for today, and I think it's actually good that we did a more general item discussion so that we know exactly how to get started with this. You know, one of the things that several cities have done is have their own resolution or ordinance to be a sanctuary city. We're a sanctuary state. Do I think that's the right move? I don't know, right? Because I'm concerned about residents. I'm concerned about us being targeted as a city. I know in earlier items on the agenda, we talked about we're waiting for some federal funding to come in for our water system. I don't know if that will be impacted. So I'm glad that we're taking the time right now to think about what we're going to do to protect our residents. But whatever it is that we do, I do feel it needs to be concrete. I think we need to make sure that we're not putting a crosshair on our city. And I think we need to make sure that whatever protections that we do try to implement or pass, that they are objective, right? That we actually they're actionable, and that we can that they will result in a real world benefit or protection to our residents. So I'm all for thinking creatively, whether we come up with something tonight or if we continue to work on this as we move forward. I think this is generally a good thing. So I'm glad that we're talking about it. I think the idea of having organizations come to our city and maybe set up some workshops, I think that's a great way to get started. By the way, I know that our newest council member is immigration. She works in an immigration law firm. So what other, you know, what a great way to maybe partner up with someone on the council to come up with solutions. I highly encourage that. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm an immigrant, so I'm also willing to give some feedback. So I do have some organizations that I know about that can provide some workshops, instructing people how to prepare for certain scenarios that they may find themselves in. So I look forward to working with staff on providing those contacts and helping in any way that I can. So workshops to me will be very, very important, having those workshops in our communities. And I do have another request coming directly from one of our constituents. She would like to see Consulado sobre Ruedas, which is a consulate on wheels. They provide immigration assistance that, when you need to renew your documents, like your passport, ID, and other sorts of things. They would like for the consulado to stop by our city because a lot of them have trouble going all the way to another city or the site where they provide these services. So again, I'll be happy to connect or refer staff to these services. Another thing, I know that we have a family services center already, and I think leveraging that site as maybe the contact point for the workshops or promoting the services will be a good place to do it. So these are just ideas and suggestions. Again, I don't think this needs to be the end of this item. I would like to continue keeping an eye on it, making sure we're proactively brainstorming and coming up with tangible ways to help our community. But again, thank you for bringing this on the agenda, and that's my comment.
I am the proud daughter of immigrant parents who have lived in this city for 50 years, who are American citizens. Have there been times where it's been difficult? Yes. This is not the first time where an administration comes in and you hear, La Migra's coming. One thing that I want to ensure that we as a council, as a city do not put fear in our residents. Why? Because this is a safe city for them. How do I know that? Because it's been a safe city for my family. It's been a safe city for my parents. So bringing up these issues, are they important? Yes. But when we start fear mongering to our residents that don't have the resources that a lot of us do, that's when the issue happens. So although this is a very passionate discussion for some people, a very delicate issue for others, the priority that I ask of my colleagues is to not put fear in our residents, but rather provide them with comfort as we're continuing these conversations, if that's what we're going to do.
Thank you for that. Any other council member want to share some points?
Yes, this is an item that hits really close to home. And a lot of our residents actually as well, which is approximately 30% of our population here in Bell Gardens. So I will be keeping an eye, close to the, federal government's actions and taking note as to what we can do to support our residents. So thank you for bringing this item to the table, Jorge.
So I want to start. I mean, this topic is very complex. It's unfolding every single day. And I agree. I share the sentiment. We have to remain calm as leaders and present items that are going to appease our residents. I'll share a little bit about myself, my story. My dad settled here in the 70s. He came through El Cerro, what everybody knows. Now he has legal status, but he always shares about that. And it's always been, it instills a lot of fear still because it's traumatic for a lot of us, a lot of our families. They continue up to today. We hear about these stories where people die, and then having law enforcement come in, ICE. I'm sorry, I feel very passionate about this topic in particular. As my colleague mentioned, it is my livelihood. I'm an immigration paralegal, and I hear these stories on a daily basis. So it's crucial that we continue these conversations and we, by hand with legal, search for resolutions that are going to allow this operation to, again, bring peace, comfort, and love and compassion to our residents. So thank you.
Thank you for that. I appreciate the lively discussion, and I think as this item was being discussed, there was many different drafts of what the item could be. And I think that, like Councilmember Barcena mentioned, I think this was the best point to bring it at in terms of just being a discussion, right? The last thing we want is the city of Bell Gardens to have an asterisk right next to it when President Trump is deciding which city is going to get funding or which city is going to be targeted first. And we certainly don't want to put the residents of Bell Gardens on the chopping block So I think it begins with a conversation like this. I think that there are, I know that organizations have been mentioned, like El Consulado Sobre Ruedas. That's obviously a service that's offered through the Mexican consulate. But I also would say that I think we should build partnerships with the other consulates around the communities, right, that are represented here within the city of Bell Gardens. I know in the past we've had different festivals, like the Puerto Rican Festival, as an example, where we have a population that happens to be from Puerto Rican descent here in the community, and just those folks that are living in fear, really. I think of COFEM, the Coalition Federation of Mexican States. That's another one that is another a nonprofit that serves as a community. And then obviously the biggest one that I know that I've had a relationship with has been Chirla. There you go. Coalition of Human Immigrants. That's another human immigrant rights, and they offer a different amount of services, legal services, pertaining to like students, right? So the folks that are in college or university, in regards to DACA, they offer deportation defense. They have like a fund specialized for that. During the first Trump administration, one of the biggest things that we saw and that was publicized a lot was family separation, right? Where they were literally separating kids from their parents, which is just a truly traumatic and inhumane thing to do. And they also DACA was another thing that was mentioned too. So I mean, I think just continually having those conversations. I would say, or I would ask that perhaps we should do a workshop. I think that'd be something I'm interested in doing. There's these things that these nonprofits have. They're called red cards, and in a red card, they list how or what your interaction with a federal agent like ICE should be, right? What questions you can answer, what questions you cannot answer, and regardless of documented status or undocumented, you have the right to remain silent, right? And you don't share, or in the trainings that I've been to, know your rights trainings that I've been to, you don't share anything unless you speak with your legal attorney first, right? Your legal representative. And I think that's probably the biggest thing. You don't want to come off as suspicious where the resident begins to answer questions and then all of a sudden shuts down, right? Just different opportunities. I don't know if Councilmember Barcena wanted to chime in a little bit about different opportunities.
Besides the ones that I mentioned, I know that there's the Immigrant Defenders Law Center. I keep in contact with them. I can also maybe try to get them to come down here and do a workshop. But I think just in terms of this item and then the action to be taken, I think, because we all are rooted in our immigrant families, I feel like we all have a lot to contribute. So maybe the direction can look something like, have staff reach out to each council member and gather, a bunch of ideas and see how those ideas can be implemented through the Family Services Center, something like that.
I would love to see tangible items that we can provide to our families, resources that they're able to have that are gonna help them, right? So yes, it's great that we can provide them all of these organizations, but where are those organizations? Are they gonna be able to come to them? A lot of our elderly families are not able to get transportation to go to said organization. So how can we provide that to them here within our city? So that's what I would love to see.
That's a great point. I think accessibility to these services is essential. So I just talked to Maripaz, that some of you have met her. She works with the Kiosquito and a few other organizations. She has been mentioning training that she's gone to, and she can get the people to come out here to Veterans Park, or who knows, maybe the Family Services Center can even figure out like how to have a sign-up system for families that are scared. Maybe we can have someone go in person to their home. So that's a great point, right? Because some of them don't have transportation, or some of them may be scared to even go to the community, the rec center, right? So again, these are ideas, coming from Councilmember De Leon, ideas from the mayor. I think we can come up with something really great. Maybe we can check in at another meeting at a later point and see what kind of progress we've made. Again, keeping a a goal of these benefits or protections being tangible, something that can really be taken advantage by our community.
And I think just rest assured to our residents that our police department, like stated, does not work with ICE and ICE doesn't work with them. And that's, really important to make sure that the message is consistent for coming from everybody, so nobody's misinformed about that.
Mayor Chavez, if I could just say a couple of words. Yes, I'm gonna echo what Councilwoman Francis De Leon Sanchez said. I just want to assure the residents that we don't work with ICE, and we want to make sure that the word gets out there, because when they're watching the news channels, they want to compare us to other police departments, and we're not that department. I want everybody to understand that if you're a victim of a crime or if you need police assistance, you are welcome to come to the station. Your status is not going to matter to us. So I understand this topic, and I understand that this is very delicate. Myself, I'm too an immigrant. So I think that you guys could rest assured as the leaders of the city that we've been building this partnership with our community for many years, and that is the reason why we go out to the community, whether it's a town hall meeting on traffic safety or crime. The residents get to know us. We walk the beats. We get out of our vehicles and really approach everyone, because we want them to understand this is their police department and we want that partnership. So we're not going to jeopardize any of that. And people understand who we are. And I think we have a great relationship with the community. And I think on some of the notifications that I've sent you guys when things happen, I think sometimes the crimes get solved because people are calling in. People are saying, "Hey, I saw this," because they trust us. And we have that relationship with the community. So I just want you guys to understand that we're going to be doing a lot of, outreach this year. And our focus is going to be always to remind folks that we don't get involved with when it comes to that topic of immigration. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Chief, and thank you everybody for again this lively discussion. And yes, I agree with Councilor Barcena along with Councilwoman De Leon Sanchez. I think definitely pragmatic opportunities for the city and for the residents, and absolutely no fear mongering. That's probably the biggest thing, because people already live in fear as it is, right? You turn on the news, you see what's going on, and and I don't know if anybody else has caught this, but it's like consistently I'm seeing these fake raids or fake posteds online, and there are community members that will literally go to certain areas. I heard there was one in Pico Rivera, and they will go and it's like not even there, and they're just again creating misinformation and scaring our community. So again, with that said, I'd say that perhaps we city manager and city staff perhaps meet with each individual council member and perhaps just develop some strategies on combating the narrative and ensuring that our residents know that we're here to support them, right? What I'm envisioning, as mentioned, workshops. I would like a red card. Those are specifically what they're called, and they have like simple know your rights. I'd say that we have them at all of the events. We can have them perhaps table at the events at all of the events of the Recreation Community Services Department. And then I think this would be another great opportunity for our Neighborhood Watch group to get involved, right? I know we have countless community members and they could spread the word too. So maybe a collaborative workshop between one of the nonprofits like Chirla or COFEM or the Immigrants' Rights Center and our Neighborhood Watch program. Thank you. All right, there's no further discussion. We'll go ahead and get a motion in a second to receive and file.
I move to receive and file.
Motion to second.
All right, we have a motion by Councilwoman De Leon Sanchez and a second by Councilwoman Guillen. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, moving on. Item number 10.5, City Manager.
Yes, thanks again, Mayor Chavez. This item is for the council to consider a legislative platform to advocate for the City of Bell Gardens legislative priorities. So basically, as the PowerPoint is being brought up here, what's generally happened at the City of Bell Gardens, where we have not had an official legislative platform, is there's generally direction from the council in many different areas regarding housing. In this case, we just spoke of immigration. We've talked about water, things of that nature. And we'll periodically get requests at the city say, hey, there's a Senate bill or there's an Assembly bill and this agency or this organization is looking for support. Generally what happens is when that request comes in the time that I've been here, I'd say all but other maybe than one or two instances, there's been obvious support from the council. And so generally we'll speak to the mayor and say, Mayor, there's been a request for this. This is normally will be provided with a pose or a support letter that we're being asked to sign on to. And generally speaking, the mayor will review it and go, well, that's generally pretty obvious, something that the council supports. In some cases, groups will reach out to council members directly. So there have been some cases too, where as a council member, I've seen where council members have signed a letter of support, just as an individual council member. In the time that I've been here, I can only think of one, and I'm not even positive of it, an issue where a council member didn't generally like that the mayor had signed some letter of support or opposition. I don't even recall the issue, but did agree that generally the council as a whole was in support or opposition. They were just a single council member that wasn't. So, it's been an informal process that we've had here at the City of Bell Gardens. And so if I could have the item brought up at this point. So what the mayor talked to us about having a formal legislative platform prepared. And the mayor and I discussed, what level of detail was he looking at? How far were we looking to go with it? And, I think we kind of settled on, a legislative platform just formally states so that it isn't left to, my understanding or the mayor's understanding as to how the council feels about specific subject matter. That, the council on an annual basis or revise as necessary will say in these areas, let's say for an example of equitable and affordable housing, the council generally supports and is opposed to anything that is negative to affordable housing. And so, sorry, we're taking a while. Are we having any issue with pulling up the platform? I can keep talking it, but at some point the visuals will probably be helpful here.
It's all right, Mike.
So while we're working,
we'll
on that.
visualize it.
Okay, so what the legislative platform does, and I would like to thank our executive assistant, Jen Pineda. She actually had worked on a legislative platform in the city of Rosemead before. So we looked at, she had some background on preparing a more formal document. We looked at the city of Cudahy, we looked at the city of Pico Rivera, looked at different examples, and then applied the basic direction that the City of Bell Gardens Council has given, at least over the last 6 to 12 months in various areas to develop the platform. Okay, here we go. And so it's a more formal looking document, but as we go through it, we have the introduction, proposal streamline process, platform goals, legislative priorities. This just really talks about what is a legislative platform. I think starting with the second paragraph is probably the most important operational item. If approved by the council, what this item really does, it authorizes the city manager and the mayor to respond swiftly to these legislative requests that may impact the city. The reason the swiftness is important and why we have been swift about it through the more informal process is we'll normally get hit up by, if it's League of Cities or some organization, and they'll say, ideally we have this letter of support, this letter of opposition by 4 p.m. today. Where the letter is reviewed, approved by staff, reviewed, signed by the mayor, and then uploaded into the legislative system so there's an official oppose. It's usually a very quick process when this occurs. Sometimes it's several days, but most of the ones I can recall, I'd say at least 60 or 70% are time is of the essence, and it's within 12 to 24 hours. What this really would do would streamline that process. On the third paragraph there, it specifically states it gives the city manager the authority to work with the mayor, which is currently what we do, to respond and act quickly to federal, state, or local legislation that may impact the city. We generally don't get requests, and we don't normally entertain, even if we do get a request, for issues that are unrelated to the city. If there were an issue that was related to some special district that has no bearing on the City of Bell Gardens or its residents, we generally don't get those requests. In the case that we do, we would probably just decline to take a position of oppose or support, especially if it was like, we need it right now. We generally would just decline either way. Sometimes we'll just get those blasts that ask for support or oppose, and they're matters that don't even involve the city. So this platform would give direction to me as a city manager to work with the mayor. It also just states here as part of the legislative platform, and the department heads, were asked to take a look at this prior to it coming to the council, because it does state that they're encouraged to monitor and really required to be knowledgeable about legislative issues regarding their specific areas. And help the city take positions in those specific areas. So if it's related to access to green space, it would be recreation community services. If it was access to affordable housing or making affordable housing more difficult to develop, it would be out of the community development department. The legislative platform theoretically would be reviewed and updated annually. I suspect if we were to have created a platform that was brought to council and adopted, probably be 90 to 95% similar from year to year, with some changes as the political environment move forward. If there's tribal legislation against the card rooms that didn't exist 4 years ago, that would be an item that would be on there as probably naturally an obvious oppose. This talks a little bit more about the process, because this is probably the more specific piece of this platform here. So basically says, once a determination is made that a legislative proposal may impact the city, and that could be made through a couple of different areas. The department head brings it up, a council member brings it up, staff brings this up, the League of Cities brings it up, Gateway COG brings it up. A letter outlining the city's position, whether it's support, neutral, oppose, and how the city council supports or opposes it, approved by this platform, will be drafted for the mayor's signature. Normally, we don't even have to draft a letter. Normally, there's already natural support, either coming from the card room, JPA, where there's already a draft prepared, or from Gateway COG, League of Cities. So that really makes it a pretty quick process. But it states formally the city manager would send that draft position letter to the mayor for review. If the mayor believes that it's not consistent with this platform here, that would potentially be approved by the council tonight, then staff would place the letter on the next city council agenda for consideration. Probably informally in that spot, there would be some other actions that would occur as well, some clarification if it was necessary, things like that. And then once it would be brought before the council, staff would finalize or modify the position letter as directed for the mayor's signature and send it to the appropriate recipient. So this is really a formalization of a process that has existed in the time that I've been here with the city of Bell Gardens. But this is all predicated on the council approving the positions and the goals that are stated in this item here. So I think the council has had time to look at some of these. The goals, I think, are pretty obvious here, to advocate for the city as an organization, to advocate for the city's businesses, the city's residents, other stakeholders that are in the city. And also, this would be a platform that if a council member were going to some sort of a conference or a meeting with a legislator, that you could bring with you, or you could review as a guideline prior to meeting, so you have some talking points already naturally built in. And also this could be used to pursue federal, state, county funding opportunities, where we could show, if we're talking with the supervisor staff and say, these are things that we support or we oppose. The council has adopted them in a formal document. We're serious about it, and we'd like to partner with you and hopefully maybe receive some funding. Those would be some of the things that a document like this would be used for. I think if we go through the priorities here, and I'll go through them quickly, and then please stop me if there's questions, or we can go back at the end. Some of them, again, are pretty obvious. General administration, we would generally support legislation that enhances control of this, that the city has control of itself. You may agree with some state law, and you don't have to exercise any control. You may disagree with state law. Generally speaking, a city would still like to have local control as to what degree are they going to agree or follow that state law. Also support future redistricting efforts that amplify local subregional voices in the county, state. So if there were going to be redistricting efforts of some nature that would benefit the residents and the constituents of the city of Bell Gardens, that would be supported. If there were redistricting efforts that appear to be gerrymandering or in some way appear to be created to negatively impact the residents or constituents of the city of Bell Gardens, that would be an obvious oppose if this were approved. opposing preemption of local authority, whether by state or federal legislation or ballot propositions, opposing legislation that preempts local authority. Each community has unique needs and characteristics that are best dealt with by the local governing body. I think if you look at the geographic and the demographic characteristics of Bell Gardens and compare that to, let's say, another city that might only be 18 miles away, they would be significantly different. And so the theme here would be let Bell Gardens make decisions for its residents that may be completely different from the city of La Habra or Buena Park or somebody that's only 15 or 16 miles away. And oppose any new program mandates that are unfunded and are partially funded. That's been an issue generally for local governments where the state will pass a Senate bill or an Assembly bill, require you to do something that you may or may not even want to do as a government body. The law requires you to do it and provides no funding for it. It'd be considered an unfunded mandate. So generally cities would oppose those on the surface and say, if you're going to require us to provide some kind of service, you should pay for that service or provide some kind of funding mechanism. The second one is fiscal responsibility and transparency. I'll go a little quicker through these. Supporting cost reimbursement for the city for mandated programs. Supporting legislation that expands or strengthens ongoing revenues for the city to allow actions that the city could take to generate revenue through the process here up on the dais. Supporting favorable legislation and full funding eligibility to effectively leverage private, nonprofit, non-traditional funding sources. Opposing any legislation that make local agencies more dependent on the state for financial stability or policy direction. So those have been issues that the state has had in the past where the state has taken local funding and promised to provide some sort of replacement funding that's of a lesser certain or lesser stable revenue source that they took away. Opposing legislation was opposed to state mandated costs for which there's no guarantee of reimbursement or some other benefit. Opposing change in revenue allocations that would negatively impact the city of Bell Gardens. Opposing legislation that undermines and preempts local authority over local taxes and fees. Some of these here would be obviously would apply to the Senate Bill 549 that was that passed through the Assembly and the Senate, signed by the governor, that allows the tribes to sue the private card rooms. That would have been an oppose, which it already was, but it would have been an oppose underneath this platform here as well. Supporting legislation that encourages development of vacant underutilized space. Some of that we've talked about in another item tonight. Supporting legislation enhance the city efforts to retain existing businesses and attract new businesses. Sorry, I'm trying to go a little bit quicker here, but while still doing justice. So basically supporting economic development and land use that makes sense for the city of Bell Gardens and the city council of Bell Gardens. Opposing legislation that negatively impacts the community, that overrides the city's ability to adopt zoning ordinances that make sense for the city. Opposing legislation that reduces the council's ability to have land use authority or land use zoning designations. Opposing legislation that would take that power away from the city council. Opposing proposal that would overstep local control and development of general plans, specific plans, et cetera. And again, if there were any questions here where there was an oppose, staff believed that this platform supported an oppose, and we were to present that to the mayor, and the mayor said, I don't think that's what the platform approved, or I disagree with it, then we would follow this and say, okay, mayor, we'll have it on the next agenda item. And you might say, well, that would take 2 weeks. Well, the next step would be, well, maybe you need to call a special council meeting for the item to be presented if time is of the essence. Housing, so supporting innovative collaborative policies and funding for housing that would help lower housing costs. These are obvious things. Local control, emergency rental relief when necessary, policies that promote home ownership, opposing housing legislation that imposes unfunded mandates where there's no guarantee we'll ever get paid, opposing policies that seek to limit local control over parking management, particularly in relation to housing. Those have been issues that have come up with other ordinance code changes and zoning code changes regarding parking requirements. This council may want to require more parking or less parking per unit than other communities do. Public safety and wellness, supporting legislation and grant opportunities to increase funding for law enforcement, fire suppression, obvious safety issues, legislation that supports funding for training, disaster preparedness, emergency planning. So coming out of these fires, if there were some legislation that were coming out of the Assembly or the Senate, those would be things that would provide additional funding for emergency preparedness. Those would be things, if this platform were adopted by the council tonight, that would be obvious support. support items. Oppose proposal policies that would raise costs or shift risk related to law enforcement and public safety onto local governments. Advocate for responsible allocation of resources. So if all of a sudden there was an assembly bill that were to say the state somehow wants to shift federal immigration enforcement to city police department under this platform, that would be an obvious oppose item. Infrastructure, these are all, I think, pretty obvious supports. I think the council's had time to look at some of this platform here. Looking at opposing transportation proposals that would adversely affect the quality of life for residents by causing traffic congestion, air pollution, and other problems. Again, when I think of requests for support and oppose over the years, they've generally fallen under these items here. We generally have all supports here under recreation community service. There would be a natural oppose if something were to, take away green space or somehow disincentivize green space or encourage people to remove green space for reasons that may not make sense for the city of Bell Gardens. With that's the platform. As a whole, as I mentioned, our staff, I think, did a good job trying to put this into a, easily readable format that's easy on the eyes. That's a document that we can put online, that we can share with the council, and we can use for multiple purposes. And the final thing I'll say again is it really, I think, the most specific thing it does is formalize the process that's generally been in place regarding support, oppose, or just being benign to existing legislation. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions on this item.
Thank you so much for that, City Manager. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question for you, Mayor. I know you brought this item up to the agenda. So what makes a formal legislative platform more effective than the current approach we currently have, and how will it be better?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that question, Councilwoman Dillon Sanchez. Well, I think in my experience, having been on this council for, can't believe it's been 5 years now, since 2020. I've had the opportunity to attend a couple of different conventions and conferences, particularly in Sacramento and DC. And many times when we meet with our federal electeds and state electeds, including even here in the county with our own supervisor, Janice Hahn, I don't want to say we go empty-handed, but a legislative report definitely is a place where we can bounce off ideas, right? I think I express the same sentiment when we've gone to conferences like ICSC, right? That's another conference where perhaps it's not necessarily a legislative report, but I've seen cities where they take a profile of their city ready to go and prepared. They meet with particular vendors and interested parties who want to develop a city. And as a city, it's our due diligence to go in there prepared. So I think I really appreciate all the work that City Manager Kelly did, also Hylas and everybody else, Jennifer as well, in preparing this and really in such a short amount of time. And I think it's been great. I really like the information. I think, again, especially for our new council members that are here joining us, it's a good fundamental document that then they can sort of build upon, where when a bill comes forward, potentially wanting to do, cities are going to be held accountable, or anything pertaining to underfunded mandates that consistently sometimes we get from Sacramento, we can automatically take a position as a city.
You feel by any chance that it's going to create some bureaucracy amongst us at all as a city council if some of us disagree on any of this legislation?
Can you elaborate? Or can you give an example?
Yes, in the past, and I'll say it was me, I was not in agreement with my colleagues putting the city's name on a document. You guys claimed to bring an expert. The expert was there. I was asking questions. Even the expert couldn't answer my questions. The people that brought forward the item weren't very knowledgeable of it either. But because it was a trend thing that was happening in Stella, let's put the city's name on it. I have issue with that. And I'm bringing that up right now because I don't want this legislative platform to be the green light for that. So that's my example.
Are you particularly talking about the propositions?
I'm talking about propositions, just any type of legislation where we would tie the city's name with it, and not have the full knowledge. And just because everybody else is doing it, let's do it as well, when we really fully need to understand the implications of what that means for our community and our residents.
Yeah, thank you so much for that again. I think I think that opportunity is still on the table, right? If any of us, whether it's Councilwoman Delon Sanchez, Councilwoman Barcena, or the Mayor Pro Tem de la Rosa, Councilwoman Guillen, I think if anybody has a concern in regards to specific legislation or a proposition, I think by all means, let's have that discussion. I think that instead, what this does, again, it's used as a platform. When I saw that report, I don't think anywhere specifically does it reference a specific bill number or a specific proposition. It's general overview or broad language that a lot of times, for the most part, cities take a position in, right? And I would assume that Jennifer, who happens to have experience with the city of Rosemead, I would assume that the city of Rosemead would have done the same. And I sent a couple of examples to city manager as well, city of Lakewood, city of Pico Rivera, city of Cudahy, city of Long Beach, right? Some of these are 20 pages, some of them are 5 pages. It's at the end of the day, I think they're all meant with general and broad. The difference is that, particularly with our city, right, we have a casino. That's something that perhaps maybe in this particular legislative report, that's something that's going to be key for us, right? Yeah. So hopefully, I think that, again, to answer your question, that opportunity is still going to be presented to us here. If anybody has a concern, let's have that discussion and we can bring it to the table. I think Councilman Barcena wants to mention something.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember De Leon Sanchez, for bringing up that concern. That just makes me, I mean, it's an interesting item. I have mixed feelings about it, but I think it's generally, I'm always looking for getting things very defined as much as possible, right? But I do have a question, and it's in regards to my colleague's comment. So to clarify, if there is something like, let's say, a letter that we're going to send out revolving around a specific issue, it sounds like there's a increased executive authority between the city manager and the mayor. However, it does also specify that if there is maybe one council member that may have a issue with it, then at that point it gets sent to an agenda item, right? Is that how it goes?
No, it would be, if the platform were adopted as is, the only reason it would come to the council based on this process is if there was a disagreement between, let's say, what the mayor thinks and versus what staff has interpreted. So let's say somebody sends us a letter and says, hey, we'd like you to sign this letter that opposes matter X. And we say, oh, that's clearly part of the platform. We should oppose matter X. It takes away our ability to derive revenues, let's say. But there's something nuanced about it. And we present it to the mayor and the mayor says, well, this item generally says support revenues, but, you know, I don't think the council meant that kind of revenue. There's some new revenue source. It's a vice of some nature. I don't know what, and says, I don't think that we say, well, it looks pretty clear and it's general revenue. In that case, we would say, okay, we need to bring that to council. This isn't clear. I mean, there would be some judgment used there, and obviously, you know, I think there'd be accountability for the judgment that's used at that time as well, too, because, you know, if the staff and the mayor agree that based on this platform, their support, and it isn't reasonable, you know, I think obviously as a staff member would be held accountable for that, you know, and the question would come up. And generally speaking, too, I mean, to be fair, not demeaning the importance of the city of Bell Garden, but generally speaking, our support and oppose are one of potentially tens or hundreds that are being sought out there. Oftentimes, the real value on the support or oppose is almost for the city to be not so much for the group that wants the support or oppose, but almost for the city to show that we support or oppose a specific matter. So that was a long answer, Councilmember, but generally speaking, yeah, it would only come to council either if there was a disagreement or as any other item, a council member could ask for an item to be brought to the agenda as well too.
Right, and I'm only thinking about it from like a game theory type of perspective. Like, I mean, obviously there's like a majority, like an underlying discussion about a majority of the council. So I'll refer this to legal. It sounds to me like there's two gatekeepers there. It's the city manager and the mayor. And I would assume that the city manager and the mayor would both be kind of like computing, like if the majority is cool with it. Is that accurate? Referring it to legal.
So it would only be what's listed on currently. So it's not necessarily whether you guys would think you agree with it or not. The moment to decide whether you agree with it generically is at this point, adopting it as it's presented now. And correct me if I'm wrong, city manager.
That's correct, but when I say there's judgment in there as well, I mean, I think as the mayor said, we don't have specific assembly bills or Senate bills on there. And I think, in an absence of clarity, the judgment would be, Mayor, I'm not sure. What do you think? And, I think in using judgment there, there are ways to, uh, you know, to determine, is it really if it really isn't clear, let's just bring it to council. That's the default.
Because what I want to point out is that I noticed, I mean, generally it's great. I feel like there's a little bit for everyone, and we all care about different issues. There's a lot of positive items on there, but there definitely are some that I can already tell, like if I created a hypothetical situation or scenario, even the mayor would probably vote no on it, right? If it came to the council. So I just worry that if we're not taking like a very clear approach to this, in the sense that if there's no majority, right? I feel like we're taking a shortcut that may create some static and some distortion along the way. But I'm also interested in knowing what the rest of my colleagues think. I think it's good. I just want to make sure we avoid any issues going into it, because it speeds things up. That's the whole purpose of it, right? It's to streamline something, but I want to make sure we're not maybe creating a slight issue in communication somewhere along the line.
Thank you for that. I want to jump in here and perhaps maybe remove a part that was presented, or sort of amend one of the recommendations in the platform, and that's the ability for the mayor or the city manager to sort of be this quote unquote gatekeeper, right? To be, and what I'm envisioning, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Councilmember Barson or Councilman De Los Sanchez, essentially there's an item that gets brought forward to the council. Let's just say it's AB 1000, and AB 1000 is something that I'm in favor of, but let's just say for whatever reason, one of us happens to have a disagreement with it. At the way it stands right now, any council member can submit a letter of support on behalf of the city. Correct me if I'm wrong. Anybody can do that. I want to keep it that way. Just keep that general. It's not only the mayor that can send a letter or the city manager. I would assume that the city manager, I don't want to assume. I know the city manager has good judgment in what impacts the city and what doesn't. And I would say that let's just keep it at that in terms of being able to submit a letter on behalf of the city or submit it against specific legislation. And I think we should keep it the same way when it comes to propositions that tend to be, if any of us as council have potentially want the city to take a position on a proposition that's coming forward in the election cycle, we bring it to the council and we vote on it. And then, but other than that, what I really want is just a legislative report that we can sort of have, and it'll be sort of a briefing document where if any other council happens to go to Sacramento or happens to go to DC or even here at the Kenneth Hahn Olive Administration with Board Supervisor Janice Hahn, we have something to work off with. Right?
And if I may, the contents of the what is the name of it again?
Calling it the platform.
The platform, yes, because you're referring to it as a report, but the platform or the report, whatever, I do feel like a lot of those issues are legitimate. I feel like I agree with the general scope of it. So in that regard, I don't really have like too many concerns. I just, I appreciate your effort to try to kind of bring it back to what we already do, because we already do this in a sense. But I don't want to lose that team sort of like decision-making process that kind of goes on under the hood. So I appreciate that.
Me too. I'm 100% on board with that, and I agree with you.
Totally. As an incoming council member, I see the benefit of such a, platform. I think it will allow long-term wise, keep the momentum going as new council members come along and such, and ultimately, with a clear vision of Bell Gardens long-term. However, there is that well, there's like two clauses that kind of, kind of made me question, the purpose of this platform. And my question to staff would it be possible to adopt this, legislative platform, but without those clauses, or, as you mentioned, make amendments to it just so that it's a little bit more, well, just so it doesn't shatter that teamwork effect of the city council.
So I think Mayor Pro Tem, the version that I would envision would be the part that kind of takes out the streamlined process part, but still leaves the platform as it is. And, and I guess just from the staff perspective, barring an approval that, if you don't approve what's there today, just say, look, here's the platform we approve. We would generally handle it the way we're handling it now, which is, this is pretty obvious. There's like strong support. We'll ask the mayor to sign either oppose or support. If we're not sure about it, it's still, mayor, I think you're going to be a support, but I feel like there's other council members that may want to oppose this item. I'll present you the support letter. You could sign it as the mayor, and I can talk with the other council members just individually. They may want to sign a letter of opposition to it, and that's okay. That's okay too, because that could happen today. Councilwoman Guillen could get a request from some organization that somehow has interacted with her that says, hey, we will request that you oppose this based on how we know you feel about something. And she says, I'm happy to sign that opposition letter. And then the city, through me or through one of the executive assistants or directly to the mayor, let's say, gets the opposite request from an organization. And it's a fine enough difference there that the councilwoman wants to oppose and the mayor wants to support. In that case, if it came through like the city's being requested, we'd present it to the mayor, and there could just be two letters out there, one from Councilwoman Guillen from the city of Bell Gardens that's logged as an oppose, and one from Mayor Jorge Chavez that's logged in as a support. And, that's just how it is. They disagreed on the platform on some finer point. It's not documented any particular way. It wouldn't necessarily come back to council, and other council members would obviously have the ability to sign their own support or oppose letters. It just puts it back to being the process being a little more informal and more fluid, and yet at the same time still does provide staff with a general platform that we can use to, make judgment calls when when things come up and somebody needs a letter in 30 minutes or 45 minutes. And that does occur. So that we could still at least reference a platform, and the platform would still be available for any other research that anybody may do on the city. It would be posted on the website. Again, so you have a document that you could take with you. If you're going to a meeting with a legislator, and you want to have something with you, it does at least show that the city has had this discussion, the council's had this discussion, have thought about some of these issues, and shows that there's, forethought and seriousness to the, whatever conversation you might have with the legislator. So I think, Mayor Pro Tem, that would be potentially in adoption of the platform with an amendment to remove the streamline process that's described in a very specific page, and then I think reference in another page, and we can make those amendments, and then formalize the document at that point. I guess I just confirm with legal counsel that would potentially be an appropriate.
Yes, and that's page 4 of the platform where the directions are. We would just make a motion to adopt the platform with an amendment to remove this direction on page 4.
Yeah. Is there any more discussion on this item?
I want to say just again, thank you to staff. That document is one of the best looking documents that I've seen in a while. The template is, I'm a nerd, so like I appreciate nice looking stuff. And I just think you guys should have made Jorge's picture a little bit bigger right there. Other than that, I think everything was perfect.
I don't agree with that. I don't want that. I'm like, this item already as it is, I'm like, oh my goodness. But again, I think it's important, and it's something that I saw other cities have, and I'll go to Sacramento at least twice a year. And again, this is an important platform for the city to use. And if I can add one more thing, and I know I've been sharing a lot, when legislation is coming down the path, coming down from Sacramento or DC, this could potentially be a sort of good checklist that the law can go through, right? Does it remove local control from our city? Yes or no? Okay, well, it does. Okay, well, how does it impact? And then we look into what section: economic development, community development. Is it an underfunded mandate, right? Now it's another thing that causes an impact to city staff. Is this going to be fees that are now our residents are going to have to pay? So it could be a checklist of sorts that as bills are being proposed, we know whether or not this is going to impact our city in a positive or in a negative way, right? So anyways, with that said, are there any motions on the floor?
If I may just move as legal instructed, create a motion with the amendments that were specified.
City Clerk, is that a motion suffice?
Yes, that's fine. So it's removal of the whole page 4, correct?
Correct.
Mhm.
Okay, so move.
There a second? I'll go ahead and second. And for voting purposes, we'll do a roll call.
Members of the Council and Successor Agency, Barcena,
Yes.
Councilwoman Guillen,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sanchez,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem de la Rosa,
Yes.
and Mayor Chavez.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Thank you so much. All right. We'll go ahead and take a quick 2-minute recess just before 9 o'clock. City manager and stuff. Thank you. We'll be back. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Moving on to last item of the day, 10.6, City Manager, take it away.
Yes, thanks again, Mayor Chavez. This item is the consideration of a process, there's a lot of words here, of a process to facilitate and prepare a strategic plan for the city of Bell Gardens. We've got a presentation here that we'll open up. Okay. And the reason we say consider it a process, we don't have a strategic plan in the city of Bell Gardens, so it isn't approve the strategic plan or approve an update or issue an RFP to do something we've done before. This is really to talk about what steps do we want to take, if any, to create and prepare a strategic plan for the city. The purpose of a strategic plan. So strategic plan is, common in almost any type of an organization, whether that be a nonprofit organization, a business organization, government agencies. It's a blueprint, in this case, for a city of a city's mission and goals, along with projects, objectives, that will ensure that if those projects and objectives are attained, that the mission and goals are being met or continuously being worked towards being met. Usually it covers a multi-year period, 3 to 5 years. I think I would argue the longer you go out on the years, the less relevant it is in year 3, 4, 5. If you look at any strategic plans in 2018 or 2019, they did not account for COVID happening in 2020. If you would look at a strategic plan, let's say in Bell Gardens, if there had been one 2 or 3 years ago, it might not look at a lawsuit from the tribes. It may have looked at legislative action and propositions and that, but probably not a lawsuit. So the goal of the strategic plan is to set the course for a city over a long period of time. I would say 3 years ideally is probably the most relevant. And then that document, if it's approved, is refreshed and reevaluated as the city goes on. The current method for setting goals and objectives, we don't have a strategic plan currently. You don't have to have a strategic plan. There's no legal requirement or anything like that to have one. Our current method in the absence of a strategic plan are a number of things. What do we currently use? They're effectively set through a number of functions. So discourse here on the dais tonight is a good example of staff hears what the council's saying, staff hears how council is approving items, amending items. That information drives other staff reports and other agenda items and other actions that staff is recommending to the city. Annual budget adoption is an obvious one. The city councils at that point will say, well, I think we're spending too much on this, or I wish we could spend more money on this. That's additional direction. A lot of time that direction is not just 12 months. It's, we'd like a aquatic center, right? There's an item that comes before council. We'd like an aquatic center. Their strategic direction. We would like to bring an ordinance for rent stabilization. Their strategic direction. So those items, regular council meetings, biweekly reporting from the city manager, kind of confirms actions that are being taken at a more tactical or detailed level. Adopting various plans, so general plans, zoning code changes, approving resolutions, making amendments to the municipal code. So these are all actions that are strategic actions. Staff takes them as such, but they're not formalized in a document. The components of a strategic plan is very hierarchical. So if you picture a pyramid with number 1 being at the top, number 4 being at the bottom, the top of the pyramid might have one triangle piece, and at the bottom you have 8 pieces. And in this case, a mission statement. A mission statement's usually one sentence. The city intends to provide the safest and best environment for the residents and the stakeholders. Something like that. It's one sentence. It's very broad. The vision statement builds on the mission by saying slightly more specifically what you want to achieve in the future to achieve that mission. Then you start getting into more numerically more strategic goals and priorities. People use different terms sometimes, but generally speaking, most cities will identify 5 to 7 strategic goals and priorities. I'll give some examples on the next slide here. And then the final thing are measurable objectives. That gets down to how many of something are we going to do to show that we are achieving or moving towards achievement of strategic goals. And if you're doing that, then you are generally moving towards your vision statement and achieving your mission. So how many of something we do? How often did we do something? What did we do different? Measurable tasks that if you do those, then your goals are being attained. Some examples of strategic goals and priorities. If you were to look at 5 different cities, municipalities within LA County or within the state of California, you're going to see, as I mentioned, 5 to 7 strategic goals or priority goals that usually revolve around these check marks here at the top in blue: fiscal, organizational stability, economic development, land use, infrastructure, health, wellness, safety, community engagement. You can probably identify things within there that I just mentioned. So if we say we adopt a legislative platform, that would probably be something that fits under organizational stability. Saying we want a rent stabilization ordinance, that's going to fall under health and wellness and safety. We would like an aquatic center, that's going to fall under infrastructure, at least from the start perspective, and then it may transition into how you program it into the health, wellness, and safety. Measurable objectives that would generally support some of those things. So if you say you want fiscal organizational stability as a goal, one of the measurable objectives might be the preparation of a fiscal contingency plan. Staff is going to bring an item, as we did, let's say, as we discussed earlier today with revenues, the finance administrative department will bring a fiscal contingency plan with actionable items to it. And if that's achieved and the council adopts it and things are carried forward, then you've attained that objective, which means you're working towards your goal of fiscal and organizational stability. Zoning code changes. These are all just examples here of more specific measurable objectives. So if you say you want more community engagement, one of the items might be, well, we've done 2 different community stakeholder surveys. Let's make that an annual stakeholder survey, and this is some goal for how many residents we want to reach, something like that. So that's sort of the hierarchy that's in place there. And so again, if I kind of go back to here and look at it, you develop a mission statement, you develop a vision statement, you create 5 to 7, there's no magic number, strategic goals and priorities. And then you have multiple measurable objectives, another 3 to 5 for each strategic goal or priority. Give or take is what you will generally see in a municipal strategic plan. So then there's really two ways really to get to this. I think there's pros and cons to both of them. I don't have the pros and cons listed, but I will talk them. The more straightforward process that I see, I looked at 9 cities relevant to Bell Gardens. So cities that are explicitly touching Bell Gardens or next to it. Out of 9, 4 of them had strategic plans that are already adopted and in place. One of them, I think, was looked to be a little more informal, in-house probably. The other 3 look to be done through what is option 1. They clearly hired a specialized consulting firm. It appears that there are multiple consulting firms out there that do this type of work. The strategic plans generally have the same look and feel, to them. This option, you know, some of the pros and cons. I think on the pro side of it, more direct and experienced process. Somebody that does this for a living, they go from city to city. They'll have multiple cities. They have probably seen cities or worked in cities that have very similar demographics, population size, geographic location, things like that. The cons to that are the cost. You know, we would put out an RFP. We're estimating to be approximately 50,000. I think the range, in fairness, could be anywhere from 35 to 75,000, depending on all of the bells and whistles. How many retreats are they going to hold? How many workshops are they going to do? Things of that nature. So that's the cost to it. We would put out, the process there is we'd put out an RFP. It'd be open for about a month. We'd take a week or 2 to review the proposals. We would come back to council probably at the second meeting in February with here's the proposals we got. Here's what staff thinks of the proposals. What does the council think of the proposals? We know what the cost was at that point. The second part of this would be direct staff to formulate a process and develop the strategic plan internally. So the pros on that are less direct costs, right? They're more indirect costs. It's going to be more staff time on city manager staff, department heads, et cetera. I think that you know, the negative to that is when I say a less experienced process, I know speaking for myself and I'm sure for other department heads that we can put together a strategic plan. We are less experienced at it. It's going to be, I think it's possibly could be less impactful for council members. I maybe have a concern that there would be less buy-in from the council because it would be dealing with the people you deal with on a regular basis, as opposed to, you know, somebody that is experienced at really pulling out, you know, information from council members that staff are not able to, maybe because of the reporting relationship and things of that nature. I think either of these, we will have a strategic plan that does what a strategic plan is supposed to do. I think we have direct costs of 50,000 with some specific experience, or we have indirect costs that are probably still resource-wise somewhere in that range. The more time staff spend on developing some of the basics behind the scenes, our time we're not spending on other things, obviously. I think staff's game to do this, definitely, and I think we could do it successfully. I suppose the third option here as well that we reference on the recommendation would be a receive and file. You don't have to do one. To be fair, out of the 9 that I looked at, you know, without calling out names directly, they would be all cities you recognize that are all exactly touching us or one city off. Like I said, out of 9, four definitely had strategic plans that are completed. And then from a city manager perspective, most city managers are never going to argue against having a strategic plan. It's just another document that guides the activities that go on a month-to-month or week-to-week or day-to-day or potentially hour-to-hour basis, and could potentially help prioritize. You know, if a council member asks for an agenda item that's going to take a significant amount of time, and it will mean that a different agenda item doesn't make it, but the different agenda item was a higher priority in the strategic plan, you know, it would give staff obviously, you know, sound argument as to why that item should wait longer. The council's already adopted this. It's clear the council sees this as a priority over this. Those would be the benefits. And if you know, you know, if you look at the International City County Management Association, they would recommend a city has a strategic plan. They would never recommend you don't. They see it as a process where the council has to go through a thoughtful process. It's documented. It's somewhat standardized. So with that, I would just again summarize, you know, what we look for is either direct us to put on RFP. Doesn't mean you have to sign a contract. It means we put on RFP and we'd see what the results are. We'd see what the costs look like, what the services look like. Step 2, direct staff to say, look, we know we don't want to spend even if it's $20,000. We direct staff to begin the preparation. Or 3, hey, it seems like a cool thing. We're not that interested in spending the time or energy right now. We'll receive and file the item. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
This question is directed to Mike. In your experience, in your professional experience, have you ever implemented or utilized a strategic plan to carry out operations, and how more efficient was it in that regard?
The first answer is yes. As far as experience creating one, yes. Monitoring it and all that, yes. I think I shared with Councilmember Barson at a different agency. I have not looked in 5 years, and I was happy to see they were still using the same templates that were developed when I was there 5 or 6 years ago. I just think I shared it in my backyard with my laptop while my kids were swimming. Actually, I remember distinctly doing it. I can definitely say there's no negative from an operational perspective once it's in place. There's no negative. It's probably arguable how much benefit on a go forward basis. I think that there's definitely probability that it does make things move more efficiently or more effectively. But I hedge that a little bit because, again, I think with the things that we have in place, let's say in the city of Bell Gardens and the discourse from the council and the approvals through the budget and all that, I can't really think of operational issues here where we, you know, if we just would have had the strategic plan in place, it would have made things move smoother. I can't really say that that's been the case. I think we've done a good job of seeing what the strategic vision of the council is without it actually being on paper. But I think there's no negative. I think there's no negative to it, and probably mostly upside potential to it, to be fair.
Anybody else want to chime in on the discussion?
Yeah, I can go ahead and I love Mike's analogy of like I don't know if you mentioned like your family or something, because like I remember I try to teach my little brother how to drive, and like that didn't work out very well. Sometimes you need an outside person to come in and do things, because if you see the same familiar faces, maybe things just don't work out. So I understand that angle, but I do have an opinion that could be a little bit different. I think I told Isabel and probably De La Rosa that the council now and where we're at with the city, I feel like it's one of the best times that I've seen ever since I came on board, and probably before. I also told Jorge, there's so much that you can do now because of the way that things are set up, the momentum that we have going into 2025, and just so many things are in the right place, right? And now looking at it on the other side, the financial side, we have some challenges there. When I saw the price tag on what we project that this will cost, $50,000, you know, the first thing I thought of was like, oh, how much is a arts coordinator position that I've been asking for? Like, you know, it's probably like half of that. So it just, I've always been, and I'm sorry I'm jumping all over the place, but I've always been like a do-it-yourself type of person. I like to do like in-house projects and kind of get in there. So, for example, when I saw Jen's document today, I'm like, that's so awesome. And by the way, I saw some other strategic plans that literally look like that, and they're just as long. So we're paying $50,000 for. I'm not saying it's useless. I'm not by any means. You know, sometimes organizations need it, but I do feel like $50,000 is getting a little bit high up there in the costs. And I do think that the city is in a position right now where I believe we can make it happen. It might not be the exact same as hiring someone other than your uncle to get the job done, but I do feel like we have so much potential as a city right now, and I think there's so much opportunity for us to grow, right, and get things done internally as a council, as colleagues, with our staff. Is it possible? I think it's possible. I just think it's up to each and every one of us to make it happen. So it's really hard for me, because I know that if we press that button and we spend $50,000, we're gonna have a nice little document, you know, 25, 29 pages, and we're gonna do a lot of the same things that we want to do already. But how about we just talk to each other and work through it and get things done? I see value in both approaches, but I want to hear what you guys have to say, because it's, you know, maybe if we were in another situation where we didn't have a deficit of about, or a projected deficit of about $3.5 million, like maybe it would be an easier decision. But I feel both options are great, but I feel like one of them is deeper. It'll be more rewarding for the organization as a whole.
Councilwoman Delon Sanchez.
Sure. I right away think of the budget, right? Like I said, budget is something that's been on the forefront of my mind ever since I heard about the Senate bill that got passed, and now the lawsuit, and now the projection of a deficit within our city budget. I think it's a great idea to do a strategic plan, to have something on paper, to be able to move forward. Like, it all sounds amazing, right? I would not want to put this on our staff, because our staff are working so hard already on so many things that we have going on within our city, within our community. We constantly ask staff to do more, to do more, to do more. It's not fair to them. So although I think, are they capable of doing this? Most definitely. Do we have some of the best staff? Of course we do. But to put that on our staff and continue asking more of them is unfair. It's also unfair to our residents to say, hey, we just talked about this budget. We might be in a deficit of 3 point something million dollars, but hey, we're going to spend 50 some odd dollars so we can all get together as a council, have a retreat, put together workshops and all that so we can talk things through. I feel that, the people that have been on council, we have a pretty good rapport. We can agree to disagree. I welcome the new council members to Team PG because we are Team PG. And I feel that amongst us, we can continue working together and have that momentum and continue doing great things for our city, have a better Bell Gardens. I say that time and time again because I believe it. And I haven't moved from here my entire life. And my parents are still here for 50 years because I believe in the city and I believe in the leadership that we currently have. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you for that. Councilwoman Gia?
It's, I see where my colleagues are going, but I do think it's an investment in our future. We see cities like Cerritos, Westminster that have these strategic plans. And again, it's an investment. I know we're talking about budget. That's something that comes to mind as well. But if that's going to be the conversation, then, I mean, we've allocated our financial to other places that, may also be questionable. So I do think this is an investment for our city.
Thank you so much for this lively discussion. And I want to say thank you to City Manager for preparing this along with everybody else who's been a part of it. Hi, Liz, Jennifer, Monica. Your office has been excelling in every single metric, and I really appreciate the work that was done to present this item to here for us. I like that there's options, right? And I love the discussion again. I think that the cost of the 50,000, I mean, it is a lot, right? I'm not gonna say it's a drop in the bucket kind of thing. But I will say that at the same time, it's also like Councilwoman Guillen said, it's an investment in the long run, right? And it's, if we take the 50,000, let's just say we do a 5-year strategic plan, right? 50,000 divided by 5 years, it's $10,000 a year, right? We spend $10,000 a year for a strategic plan of 5 years, assuming that we were to do something like that. And it's sort of a blueprint, as was referenced in the PowerPoint, that we get to use as a guiding document moving forward in the next, if we were to develop it in 2025, we'd have until 2030. I'm glad to hear that for our city manager, Michael Kelly, they're still using the same platform that you created, right? That speaks to your excellency when it comes to being proficient in facilitating and preparing such a plan. But at the same time, as Councilwoman De Leon Sanchez mentioned, our staff is doing a lot, right? Our staff is doing a lot. So I'd be interested in having a third party actually come out, professional third party, who can actually facilitate and prepare such a plan, and see how it could be prepared, and be a little bit, ask maybe perhaps questions that are different, in the sense that these are individuals that aren't in the dais, aren't here in the city, that can perhaps think outside the box and have engaged with not only us as council members, but with different, from other cities they're experts. They do this for a living. And I'm also glad to hear that out of 9 cities, 4 of them happen to have these strategic plans, and Cerritos and Westminster. So yeah, before we make any motions, I just want to make sure that if anybody else wants to chime in or have any more discussion on this item. Councilwoman De Leon Sanchez?
Yeah, if we direct staff to issue an RFP and we get different proposals at that time, are we just able to look at those proposals, see the costs, and then vote again to see if we want to move forward? Or at that time we have to say, no, we're putting the RFP out, we're going to move forward regardless of cost?
You can always put the RFP to the side. You can always table the item. It's the council has to bring the item back at that point when we have proposals.
Thank you for the clarification.
Quick, if we were to pursue that route and requesting an RFP, by when would we have the item back to us?
So we would, just in anticipation of this, we already looked at some RFPs that other cities have used. So our goal would be to have the RFP out probably this Thursday. And then open, generally, we try to do 4 weeks unless there's some expedience or some grant funding or something, not in this case. So we would be looking at having it out roughly, let's say the 16th of January, a deadline back around February, probably Valentine's Day, February 14th. Goal would be to have it to council, have review done in council at the second meeting in February. I think if we, push that, we could. So I think that's around February 21st or something.
24th.
With 24th. And then we go from there. I think at that time, if the council wanted to hire somebody, the process would still be probably take about 3 months from that point forward. Even if the council were to give us direction, execute an agreement, we've got to get the contract signed. Time frame is probably an 8 to 12 week process for them to gather up all the information, do all the behind the scenes work, get things scheduled. And, if the council sees the proposals are too high, too low, or maybe there's one that comes in at 30,000, 35,000, but it really seems like it's hitting the mark on what the council's looking for and satisfies the majority of the council or all of the council. We really don't know. I think putting out the RFP is exploratory and it's helpful no matter what. I think also, I can definitely commit from the staff side of it. It's hard not to see this as a bit of a challenge and want to just take it up from the staff perspective, to be fair. So realistically, subject to all the other priorities that the council has for staff, I think in finding in time, I'd still be working with Hylas, Jen, and Monica on an alternative approach. So when we would bring the proposals, if we'd have an alternative approach from that would be a staff-driven, a realistic staff-driven process, so that the council could make a decision at that point. So I think it's really just an enhanced version of this agenda item here. We've had the discussion on what's the strategic plan, what's the value of it. The next step would be giving you, I think, 2 enhanced choices. Instead of just saying put on an RFP or direct staff, it would be here's the results of an RFP, here's what the services are, here's what the cost is. Here's a version that the staff could do without direct costs, with sort of a timeline there. And then the council could make a very informed decision on both avenues at that time. I think that would work from a staff perspective. That would work.
Quick question, city manager. With all of that, staff, in terms of the alternative being presented, I would assume that staff would probably say, hey, we have to reserve similar to how a consulting firm would have done in terms of creating a time where all of us can kind of have a discussion. And wouldn't, depending on how long a meeting is and everybody else's, but this is 4 staff members that we're talking about, yourself, Hylas, Jen, and Monica. Wouldn't it already kind of equate to a couple $1,000s just in staff time alone?
Yeah, I think I tried to, it's hard to say specific dollars. It's indirect time. It is time spent away from other things that we're working on. So I think of the staff report, I do mention that there are probably indirect costs and things that we don't otherwise work on that, I can't say with specificity, but, that do equate to resources that are otherwise lost. Obviously, then the concern though is sometimes, there's a difference sometimes between cash resources and other things that you forego doing, especially when there's budgetary issues. So, but yes, there would definitely be a cost from a staff perspective. There'd be there'd be materials costs and things of that nature in addition to just staff time. Mostly would be just other things that we're not working on. That would really be pushing this as more of a priority from other things. And I could, run down a list of things that we're working on currently. But I think if council were to approve the issuance of an RFP, I could commit from staff's perspective, we could still bring, a somewhat of almost like a staff proposal version. So the council could decide it at that time. And you might see something that's 75,000 and just say it's so worthwhile. If it's 5 years, it's worth it. Or you might say it's not worth it for that much money. We like what staff is proposing. And
If I may interject, I just want to make sure that, and maybe you can help us, Mike. Has anyone had, well, I don't know if anyone has had the chance to look at a few of these strategic plans from other cities, but Mike was kind enough to share with me what they look like, right, from the vicinity, just cities around here. I'm not exaggerating when I say that the document looks almost exactly as the one that Jen prepared for us. Like, it's not really like, you have other more extensive documents, like, for example, a city plan or like something just more technical, more detailed. It's nowhere near that. It's a very simple document. It's almost like a branding package if you think about it, if you want to draw an analogy there. So I would recommend, or if possible, if Mike can send us an email with like some of those attachments, that way you get a sense of like what the $50,000 will be getting us. I'm still open to the idea, especially if the RFP proposals come in like lower. I feel like it might make it a little more worth it. But it is something that it's kind of small. It's not like I'm not saying it doesn't have potential, but I just want to make sure we know like exactly what we're gonna be getting for
Right.
this.
Yeah, and to echo that idea, I had a challenging time justifying the $50,000 price tag on that. But at the same time, also like considering the ROI, right? How much can we get out of it, right? So I'm open to see to shop around and see what how much would it cost, and if the price is right, and also while evaluating the surrounding cities, strategic plans, we could make a sound decision then. So that's my take on that.
And I'm sorry, but I have another thing to add. Another thing that I was talking to Mike and one of my colleagues about was what this would not be, right? This would not be necessarily a very strong tool to get to work right now, like right away, right? This is like a long strategic plan that's gonna sort of be the blueprint for 5 years. That's a lot of time. I do feel that as a council, we need a tool, and I don't know if there could be like a component added to this RFP in which we can kind of have some professional help in the sense of being able to work with staff, being able to work with each other, because I feel like that might be more practical to us right now, right? Right as we get going with the goals that are within the next few months. So if we can incorporate that into the RFP, I'm not sure what to even call it, but I feel like that could really help us more immediately, right? If there's a component of that, rather than just like the 5-year thing that we're looking for. And for $50,000, I hope that we could get something in there.
And Councilmember, generally speaking, that's I think where a lot of the value comes in from a third party versus staff is, this kind of team building and interaction among the council members, that somebody that does that for a living, that doesn't have to quite worry about offending council members that they are not going to work for in 2 months or things like that. But there's definitely a component of this sort of team building and, communication among council that's important, that I know is incorporated into these processes.
And I think, we need to have more information to make a well-formed decision on what route we're gonna go. But being able to get those examples and get different quotes and, really solidify what that looks like will help us determine how we move forward.
Yeah, thank you. I just really quick for the point of Councilman Barcena in regards to engagement with ourselves as colleagues. I really appreciate the ability to be able to be respectful and civil with all of you. I think that is something that I really cherish at all events, right? We're always cordial and we always acknowledge each other. And I think maybe in our own professional backgrounds or even here on this dais, we've seen people that sometimes haven't always had a positive view being on this dais. And I'm just very happy that we are able to be respectful and civil here and really care about our community. We're respectful to staff, and we honestly are a model city when it comes to, we have an incredible city manager who really, every time we reach out, he knocks it out of the park, right? And with this item that's here, obviously, he's a city manager, right? This is something that I got in my experience when I went to SC doing my MPA. This is something they taught me about and the importance of having a strategic plan. The ICMA organization is a great organization, and they teach. This is something that professional development and the arena number plan, the general plan, the safe streets action plan. That there's countless different reports that can be used. So again, I think it just really comes down to how you view it, right? And at the end, I think we don't have anything to lose right now at this point. We can give direction to actually make a motion to bring an RFP. At that point, we also have an opportunity to see, hey, now we know what are the bidders. We can maybe each of us have our own meeting with the city manager, kind of really go into depth, as Councilman Barcena mentioned, about what exactly does this strategic plan do? How nice and shiny is it, or is it worth it or not worth it? And from there, we can always make that decision at I think the second meeting in February. So with that said, I want to know if I want to go and put it out. Is there any motions on the table?
Motion to direct staff to issue an RFP.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion, a second, Councilwoman Guillen, and a second by Mayor Pro Tem De La Rosa. Can we get a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Members of the Council and Successor Agency, Barcena,
Yes.
Councilwoman Guillen,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sanchez,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem De La Rosa,
Yes.
and Mayor Chavez.
Aye. Thank you so much, everybody. Moving on, we'll go ahead and do council member comments, beginning with Council Member Marco Barcena.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to thank staff for today's meeting, very productive. Congratulations to the council on their first normal meeting, right? Like, yeah, sort of. And what did I need to ask for? Yeah, I'd like to thank the Recreation Department for opening up the art space. I want to make my way back there as soon as I can, but just so you guys know, we do have a art space now open on Wednesdays from 6 to 8. And we got I went to go pick up a big donation of like paints. So I know it might take a little while for them to have them ready to be used because there's like a lot of spray cans and like a lot of different types of paint. But it will be there. And I don't know why I see the chief laughing like something about the paint, but no, it's not. Yeah, did someone break in? Okay. Okay, no, well, yeah, that's something that I'm looking forward to, just seeing that grow. We've never had a art space like that, so I hope that if you guys know anyone that wants to come check it out and be part of a growing community of artists in Bell Gardens, we have a spot now. And so thank you. Other than that, thanks to my colleagues for such a thoughtful and meaningful meeting, and I will see you at the next one.
Thank you for that. Council Member Isabel Guillen.
So good night. Thank you, everyone. I mean, it was a fruitful meeting. I'd like to acknowledge, everything that is going on. It's very beautiful to see all communities come together, all the fires, It's unfortunate, the events that are going on, but again, I do believe our resilience defines us. I've tried to check in with our staff, to see if any one of you have been affected. And again, I will keep on saying this, it's unfortunate because we all know somebody knows of somebody that was out there, knew somebody. And again, even though material objects, they're not the definition of, life, they do hold sentimental value to a lot of us. A lot of those homes were homes for decades, and it's just very impactful. I want to commend my colleagues who have been doing their part, donating, showing up. I know Marco, Francis, you were very active about it. Thank you for that. I myself went out and, it's, again, very impactful. It's very, I'm sorry, it just, when you see these situations, scenarios, it just puts everything into perspective and allows you to be grateful for what we have. We are privileged to be sitting up here, and I hope this privilege is representative of our community and we continue to show up. Again, our mayor said some words that he said that we're very respectful of each other, and I thank each and every one of you for that because I do believe we have a lot to do and we will accomplish that if this energy continues. And again, our first responders, thank you, Chief, for, leading our men and women. I know some of them were out there, so thank you. And our Station 39 was here, they left, but I hope they continue to come and we continue to show up for them and we take them on that invitation to attend and see what it is that they do for our community. So thank you so much for everything and God bless you all.
Thank you for that. Councilwoman De Leon Sanchez.
Thank you to all the staff for the continued support for our residents and, just the community in general. I definitely want to take Station 39 on that offer. And I know that I've interacted with them, off-site, but never at their firehouse. So I definitely want to visit them. So thank you for that offer. Everybody that has been affected by the wildfires, like, it's been said, this is when you truly see community come together. And it's amazing to see all the wonderful things going across many communities, many cities, I know that a lot of my colleagues, like Isabel said, were active this past weekend, putting in the work, doing the work. If you're curious as to how you can help, yes, the Red Cross is a great place to start, but there are so many organizations that are asking for specific things. Why are they asking for specific things at this time? It's because there was an overwhelming abundance of donations this past weekend, especially of clothes. At this point, a lot of donations for clothes has stopped because they need toiletries, they need gift cards. A lot of the families have nothing. So they need some sort of, income to go shopping to be able to get some essentials. If you do want to assist them, please feel free to reach out to me. I've partnered up with a lot of organizations this weekend and I've been helping nonstop. So I'm more than happy to facilitate that to others. Um, I want to thank, my family and friends that really helped this past weekend. Just bring a little bit of happiness to some of those victims. And I'm going to ask the mayor, if possible, if you can please close this meeting with the moment of silence in honor of all those affected by the ongoing fires, because, with the winds coming up and just like they mentioned, we don't know to what containment or how severe this can get. So thank you very much to my colleagues, and it's been expressed, we're here. It's a privilege for us to be here. Our community elected us to be here, and we have a responsibility. And like I've said, we can agree to disagree, but at the end of the day, we're here to support our community. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Mayor Pro Tem de la Rosa.
Our hearts go out to all of those impacted by the devastating fires across Los Angeles County. And I also want to extend my deepest gratitude to Station 39 and our very own BGPD as well, as they were deployed to assist and support Area E. Thank you for your tireless efforts. And on another note, I would like to thank staff and my colleagues for facilitating, this first formal meeting of the year. I'm looking forward to what awaits in the future meetings. And thank you all for all your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you for that. For my comments, I just want to say thank you so much to everybody who was here, the community that came out, for staff, for all the incredible work that you do. It's a new year, right? It's the first meeting of the year. I'm glad that we began the year with a very, very productive meeting. I think we're at 3 hours and 46 minutes, and I just really appreciate all the effort that went into this. I know some of you, I should probably say all of you probably worked during the holidays, and I want you to know that on behalf of the people of Bell Gardens, we really, really appreciate all you do for our community. I think I've shared it in the past. We have members who service the city, who work in the city, who live over 2 hours away from this city, all right? But the fact that they're here in this meeting staffing and assisting us, it goes to show your commitment to the residents and to the community of Bell Gardens. For our first responders, the police department, right? You're the department that's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 a year. Doesn't matter if it's Christmas, New Year's, you name it. You guys were going to be there, and someone's going to pick up the phone. So I really appreciate for all your efforts on that front, and also for responding when that call came through to the sheriff for assistance. Also want to thank Fire Station 39, as I was mentioned, from my colleagues. Appreciate them coming out and wanting to build that bridge. I've had the opportunity to take a tour, and I've actually done a ride along earlier on in my time in council. I think this is like 2021. I got to attend with Supervisor Janice Hahn when she did a quick like hot dog barbecue thing event out there. So I'm looking forward to it. I would also say that maybe when we are going to go on that ride, we invite her along, right? Because I'm pretty sure that the captain, as he was here, he probably would also want to share some perspectives of how the situation is right there in Fire Station 39. With that said, to everybody else who is assisting and being first responders, the people who are incarcerated, who are actively engaging and assisting in the fires, right? I think close to 30% of the firefighters happen to be people who are in prison. So I appreciate their efforts, and also firefighters that came from Mexico and from Canada and from different countries who have been assisting us, different states who have sent over their National Guard. I really appreciate all their efforts, and it's an interesting time as we're going to make a transition. Next time we meet as a council, we will have a new president, and let's we might not be in agreement with them if on anything, perhaps. But hey, they're our president, and as Councilman Barcena mentioned, we have some funding that's tied up with the federal government. So let's continue to be partners and work on behalf of the Bell Gardens community and residents. With that said, in request of Councilmember De Leon Sanchez, we're gonna go ahead and conclude this meeting on behalf of the ongoing fire victims, and those being impacted by the wildfires here in our state. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. If there's no objection by the members of the City Council, I will adjourn the Successor Agency Joint Meeting at 9:49 p.m. Thank you, everybody.